Chapter 1381. Pleasing the handkerchief slid open, revealing the word Shao. However, the Marquise still did not have any reaction. She only said, "Mrs. Shao, you might have been here for a long time. Why don't you go in and have a cup of tea and snacks?" Then she said to the other children, "What about you? Do you want to rest for a while before playing?" Everyone looked at the young princess. The young princess nodded and then looked at Gu Yundong. Seeing that Gu Yundong was holding Qingyuan's hand, she frowned and ran to her right. She also grabbed her hand that was holding on to the handkerchief. "Gu Yundong. What are you doing? What happened?" The little princess blushed slightly. She did not look at Gu Yundong and deliberately said with a straight face, "Let's go." Gu Yundong looked as if she had been struck by lightning. "No, young princess, you were still calling me a bumpkin just now. Don't you feel uncomfortable holding my hand?" The young prefect was not upset, but Qingyuan was. She wanted her not to hold her hand. This was her sister Gu. However, looking at the Marquise in front of her, she did not say anything. She only secretly glared at the young princess. On the other hand, the Marquise covered her mouth and laughed softly. Others might not know, but she knew very well. The young princess was the daughter of the royal prince, Zhiyan. Zhiyan was an arrogant person, and her daughter was very doted on. In any case, with him as her father, no one could bully her. Therefore, the young prince's personality was a little free to do whatever she wanted. When she could not stand Gu Yundong, she would scold her. Now that she realized that Gu Yundong had something that she liked, she could not help but get closer to him. Others did not know if this personality was good or bad. The Marquise sighed as she walked into the hall. When she turned around, she found that the children had all followed her in. Gu Yundong, who was surrounded in the middle, actually felt like the king of children. The Marquise wanted to laugh for a moment. "Come sit." The Marquise got someone to serve tea and snacks for the children. She then asked Gu Yundong, "What kind of books does Mrs. Shao usually read?" Did this lady have to ask this? If she said that she only read storybooks, would she lead the children beside her astray? Hence, she took a sip of water and coughed lightly. "I read everything. Astronomy and geography, medical books on medicinal herbs, farms, forests, countryside, historical biographies. I read whatever I'm interested in." As she spoke, she felt a little guilty. She lowered her head and continued to drink her tea. The Marquise was surprised. "You really know a lot." When the other children heard this, they also tilted their heads and looked at her. So she knew so much because she had read so many books. However, they usually read poetry collections, scriptures, and memorized thousands of words. Thinking about it this way, their horizon seemed a little narrow. Gu Yundong saw that they were deep in thought and felt even more guilty. She quickly changed the topic, raised her head and said, "By the way, it's rare to see Madam today." Yundong boldly asks for a gift from Madam. The Marquise was stunned. Not only her, but the others present were also stunned. The servant girl beside the young princess secretly rolled her eyes. The country bumpkin was indeed unruly. It was her first time meeting the Marquise, and the Marquise had only chatted with her for a while out of respect for her, but she was actually taking advantage of her? Just wait. Just because the Marquise was easy to talk to didn't mean she didn't have a temper. As expected, the smile on the Marquis's face faded a little, but she still asked kindly, "What gift? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1382. She's so busy. Gu Yundong took out a piece of paper from his space. She handed the paper to the Marquise, who was stunned. She took it and looked at it. The drawing on the paper was very vivid, and there were some words on it. It looked a little strange. This is a flyer. It was the flyer for Xuanhe Prefecture's new tea pavilion. She had left a few behind when she was drawing them previously. She didn't have time to draw them in the capital, so she took one out and used it first. Fortunately, she tore off the piece with the address and date on it. "I'm working with Auntie Qin to open a milk tea shop in the capital to entertain nobles like the Marquise. The food and water in the shop are relatively new. I dare say that there's nothing similar in the capital. If the Marquise is free, why don't you go and take a look? I'll be very interesting." The Marquise looked surprised and lowered her head to look at the leaflet in her hand. Pearl milk tea, double-skimmed milk, croissants, fries. What are these? Yundong smiled mysteriously. It's delicious. Madam will know when she comes. The Marquise smiled. You're still keeping it a secret. That's right. The shop hasn't opened yet. When the renovation is done, Madam should come over to take a look and you'll know what these are. When the time comes, bring old Madam, second Madam, and the heiress to experience it together. On the first day, there will be a half-price discount. The Marquise was a little curious about something she had never heard or seen before. Especially since the flyer seemed to be very tempting. She did not go out often, but it was fine for her to go occasionally. Moreover, this was a collaboration between Yundong and Mrs. Qin. Even if it was for the sake of the Gu family, it was fine to make a trip. However, it's fine with old Madam. She doesn't like to move now and doesn't like to join in the fun. His second aunt can go and take a look. I'll call her later. All right, then I'll send a post to Madam. Madam, you can't refuse. Of course not. Yundong was slightly satisfied. Although she had not seen second Madam today, she would find an opportunity. Seeing that they were almost done talking, the young princess quickly said, I'll go too. You can also give me an invitation. Yundong lowered her head and thought for a moment. She naturally felt that she could not let go of the opportunity in front of him. All right, but you need an elder to take care of you. No problem. I'll still ask my cousin to bring me. Today, the young princess came to the Marquis mansion because her cousin had brought her over. After Yundong finished speaking, she saw that the Marquise looked a little tired. She quickly got up and bade farewell, taking the children with her. When she went out, she realized that Madame Gu was looking for her outside. Yundong hurriedly led Qin Anning over. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, she realized that the young princess had also followed her. Yundong was speechless. She stopped in her tracks and looked at the little girl strangely. Only then did the little princess react. She blushed and snorted. I just want to remind you not to forget to send it to me when the time comes. After a pause, she continued, I will also invite you. Tell me the address and I will treat you on my birthday. There's no need, right? A trace of fear flashed across Yundong's face. She did not want to go to the Marquis mansion. That kind of place was restricted. She had to smile and bow when she saw someone. It was easy for something to happen, okay? Besides, she was actually very busy, really busy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1383. What a coincidence. Seeing that she did not speak for a long time, the little princess became anxious. Why aren't you saying anything? Don't you want to come? Yundong had a headache and could only say, Princess, you heard it just now. I'm opening a shop. Then I'm very busy. I might not have time. How busy can a shop be? Can't you just keep the door open? Yundong was speechless. She wanted to cry. The corners of her mouth twitched and she said, Of course it's not that simple. Look, when I open a shop, I first have to renovate the shop and recruit workers. When the workers are found, I have to teach them how to work and entertain customers. Later, I have to get ready for the opening event, prepare ingredients, and attract customers. Sometimes, I have to deal with others who come to find trouble with me. Things are piling up. I'm really too busy. The little princess' eyes widened as she listened. So it's so complicated. You're amazing. You actually know everything. The young lady behind her also nodded in agreement. They had no choice. At first, they thought that opening a shop was very simple. After all, their shops were all managed by the shopkeepers. The little princess was a little disappointed, but seeing that Yundong was so tired, it seemed a little unreasonable to send an invitation to her. She could only nod reluctantly. All right, then I won't invite you, but remember to invite me. All right. Yundong nodded and agreed without hesitation. Only then did the little princess smile. However, the maid standing behind her rolled her eyes and lowered her eyes without saying anything. Yundong stood up and brought Qin Anning to meet up with the Gu family. She followed Madame Gu to greet the other madams and young ladies. After staying in the Marquis mansion for a while, she stood up and left. After leaving the Marquis mansion, Madame Gu carried Ning into the carriage and asked, "How is it?" Gu Yundong sighed and shook his head. The Marquise didn't seem to have any reaction when she saw the bracelet or the handkerchief. Madame Gu frowned. Could we have gone in the wrong direction? I've never heard of anyone losing a child in the Marquis mansion. I don't know either. It's just that this is the only clue at the moment. We can only look for it in the Marquis mansion first. If it's not relevant, we can look in other directions, Gu Yundong said. Let's try second Madame another day. Madame Gu patted her hand. There's no hurry. We've waited for so many years. Now that we have a clue, we'll find it eventually. Okay. Gu Yundong nodded. Send Anning back first. I think she's a little sleepy. I'll wait for Brother Shao. All right, then I'll take my leave first. If there's anything, you can come to my residence to look for me. There's no need for any invitations. I'll tell the door guard. Okay. Madame Gu asked the maidservant to help her into the carriage. Gu Yundong and Tong Shui Tao watched their carriage get further and further away until it disappeared around the corner. Then she turned around. She did not know when Shao Qingyuan had appeared behind her, but what surprised Gu Yundong was that he was holding 2 boxes. Gu Yundong looked at the 2 boxes in confusion. This is... During the time you were in the Marquis mansion, I got 2 herbs. They were written in the medical book that Song Dajiang gave me. Gu Yundong's eyes widened. I've only been in the residence for a short while, and you've already gotten 2 precious herbs? Those were the herbs recorded in Song Dajiang's medical books. Shao Qingyuan handed the box to Shao Wen, who was leading the carriage over. He smiled and said, "It was just a coincidence." Wasn't that too much of a coincidence? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1384. Bad feeling. Gu Yundong remembered that in the medical book Song Dajiang had given her, there were about 50 kinds of precious herbs. In less than 2 years, Shao Qingyuan had already found more than 30 types. Gu Yundong felt that he might have a buff that attracted medicinal herbs. Otherwise, how could it be so easy for him to find a medicinal herb that others might not be able to find even after working hard for their entire lives? Perhaps he was born to walk the path of a medicinal herb merchant. Gu Yundong could not help but sigh. Shao Qingyuan helped her into the carriage. The carriage drove all the way to Hatai Alley. Gu Yundong took the opportunity to tell him everything that had happened in the Marquis mansion. When Shao Qingyuan heard this, he was silent for a moment. He grabbed her hand and said, "It's fine. There's no hurry. It's only the first day." Yeah. As they spoke, the carriage entered the alley and stopped in front of the Shao family's house. Unexpectedly, just as the carriage stopped and before she could get out, the door of the house next door opened and Mrs. Yu ran over. "Is Sister Yundong back?" "Yes, sister-in-law. What's the matter?" Gu Yundong lifted the curtain and alighted from the carriage. Mrs. Yu had already run up to them and said in a hurry, "Io, where did you go? Why are you only back now? Let me tell you, when you left this morning, someone rushed over to look for you and said that he had something to tell you. There's no one here. I heard that they even went to your shop to look for you." Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were stunned at the same time. They looked at each other and asked, "Sister-in-law Yu, did you ask who was looking for us?" "I asked. He said his surname is Song. You two know each other." "Song? Song Dajiang? You should know each other, right? He's a little old and so tall. He came in a carriage. He looked so anxious as if someone was going to die." Mrs. Yu said, "He asked me to wait for you to come back and tell you that it's an urgent matter." A bad feeling flashed across Shao Qingyuan's heart. "Let's go to the Song residence." Gu Yundong quickly turned to Mrs. Yu and said, "We understand. We'll go over and take a look now." "Thank you." With that, she got into the carriage with Shao Qingyuan. Shao Wen, who was about to open the door and remove the threshold, locked it again and sat in the shaft with Tong Shui Tao. Mrs. Yu waved her hand and watched their carriage leave the alley. Gu Yundong did not know what had happened to Song Dajiang or why he was in such a hurry. Her intuition told her that it might have something to do with by Muzi. The carriage quickly stopped at the entrance of the Song residence. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan alighted from the carriage and the concierge recognized Shao Qingyuan. He quickly went up to them. "Young Master Shao, you're here." "Yes, why is Imperial Physician Song looking for us?" The gatekeeper's eyes avoided them. He sighed and said, "You'll know when you come in." Then, he hurriedly led the way. Gu Yundong had not been to the Song residence before today. She had her own matters to attend to. It was her first time here today, but she did not have any curiosity for admiration. The two of them walked all the way to the central room before the same urgent footsteps came from inside. Then, Gu Yundong saw Song Dejiang, whose clothes were disheveled, whose hair was tangled, and whose head was covered in sweat. Song Dejiang was slightly stunned when he saw them. His fingers that were hanging by his side trembled slightly. Gu Yundong took a few steps forward. "Imperial Physician Song, what's wrong?" However, Song Dejiang was too ashamed to see their expressions. He raised his hand and wiped his face ruthlessly. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1385. I used by Muzi then, Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan saw the blood on his face. "You?" Song Dejiang choked. "Yundong, I've let you down. What happened?" Song Dejiang raised his head. His eyes were bloodshot, and it was difficult for him to speak. After a long while he said with difficulty, "By Muzi is gone." Gu Yundong felt her head explode. He was stunned for a moment and could not help but take a step back. However, Shao Qingyuan suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Song Dejiang's clothes. "What do you mean? What do you mean by Muzi is gone?" Cough, cough. Song Dejiang coughed uncomfortably. The servant beside him hurriedly came up to grab Shao Qingyuan's hand. "Young Master Shao, calm down and listen to old master first." Shao Qingyuan pushed the servant away and stared at Song Dejiang sharply. "Tell me." Even though Song Dejiang was feeling a little uncomfortable, he still said, "My martial nephew's old illness had relapsed, and he needed by Muzi to save his life. I have no choice. I only had one stock with me, so I gave it to him to use first. I originally went to look for you to get your approval. Ahem, but you weren't around. My martial nephew couldn't wait any longer, so I could only..." Song Dejiang also felt very guilty. Other people's things were equally important to them. He had used them without permission, but he had no choice. He could not watch his martial nephew die just like that. He had no choice. Song Dejiang closed his eyes. "I know that I didn't do this right. I've let you down. If you want to beat or scold me, it's up to you. I'll accept it." Shao Qingyuan suddenly clenched his fists and raised them high in the next moment. The servant beside him hurriedly rushed forward to stop him. "Young Master Shao, don't be rash. Master is old. If you punch him, he will lose his life. Get lost." The servant did not dare to let go. Not only was young Master Shao strong, but he was also a martial artist. He turned his head and happened to see Gu Yundong. He hurriedly shouted, young Master Shao, look at your wife." At the mention of Gu Yundong, Shao Qingyuan finally calmed down. He let go of Song Dejiang and turned to see Gu Yundong lowering his head in a daze. Shao Qingyuan quickly hugged her. "Yundong, it's fine. If it's gone, well, look for it. We'll find it eventually." Gu Yundong's mind was in a mess. She had listened to Song Dejiang's words. However, she did not know what to do. It was not easy for her to obtain by Muzi. It had only been a few days, and he was gone just like that? Should he give Song Dejiang a beating? So what if he did? By Muzi would not be able to return. Gu Yundong had a headache. He frowned in pain and his face turned pale. Shao Qingyuan quickly picked her up and rushed to the guest room. Song Dejiang was still standing at the same spot. As he watched the two of them walk away, his legs seemed to be filled with lead and he could not move. His body was still in a mess and he looked very disheveled. Previously, when he was treating his martial nephew, he was also fully focused and did not dare to slack off at all, afraid that his martial nephew's life would be lost in his hands. Now, she actually felt her legs go weak and she slid to the ground. The servant at the side quickly supported him and sat him on a chair at the side. "Master." Song Dejiang waved his hand. "I'm fine." He pointed in the direction where Shao Qingyuan had left. Follow them and see if they need anything. Yes. After the servant left, Song Dajiang wiped his face again. The blood on his hand had already dried up, and his nose was filled with the smell of blood. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1386. Her mother has been waiting for a long time. Shao Qingyuan carried Gu Yundong and kicked open the door. After placing her on the bed, he frowned and looked at her worriedly. What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? I'm fine. I just feel a little uncomfortable. Gu Yundong buried her head in his arms and said in a muffled voice, Why is it gone? It wasn't easy for us to get by Muzi, but it's gone just like that. It's okay. Well, look again. Gu Yundong hugged him tightly. We've been searching for nearly 2 years. It wasn't easy to find such a stock. I don't know how many more years it will take to find it. Her mother had been waiting for a long time. Gu Yundong hugged Shao Qingyuan even tighter. I really want to beat Song Dajiang up. I'll beat him. After Shao Qingyuan finished speaking, he realized that Gu Yundong's grip on his waist had tightened. He sighed slightly and hugged her on his lap. If it's really uncomfortable, cry. I'll be here. I'll watch over you. I am. Gu Yundong had always been strong and rarely cried. However, at this moment, she felt her eyes sting. It was very difficult to find that by Muzi. Shao Qingyuan almost gave up his life for this medicine. He almost became someone's slave. He ran away for a clue. He had put in a lot of effort. It was not easy for him to find by Muzi. In the future, he would not secretly take risks without telling her. But now, they were back to square one. Her mother still had to wait. She had just had some hope, but it was gone. I'll write a letter later and ask my parents not to come. Her negative emotions reached their peak in an instant. Father and mother would be so disappointed. Shao Qingyuan took a deep breath and lowered his head to kiss her face. I'll write it. They won't blame you. Yes, Gu Yundong replied softly. Then, she closed her eyes and leaned into his arms without making another sound. Shao Qingyuan gently stroked her back until he felt her breathing gradually calm down. Then he hugged her and lay down. Seeing this, the servant at the door quietly closed the door. He exhaled and left quietly. When he returned to the main courtyard, Song Dajiang had already stood up. In the end, he went to wash his face, but his body was still messy. The servant reported, Young Master Shao and Madam are resting in the guest room. Song Dajiang paused and nodded. Get Shao Wan and the rest to come in too. Arrange for them in the room next door. Then, he went in to see his martial nephew. The guy was still unconscious, but his expression was slightly better. Song Dajiang sighed and asked the medicine boy to continue guarding the room while he returned to his room to rest. He had been tense since early in the morning. He was old, and after such a rescue, he felt like the world was spinning when he came back to his senses. However, he really could not fall asleep on the bed. It was not until the sky was about to darken that he slowly fell asleep. The next day, Song Dajiang woke up early. He went to see his martial nephew first, who was still unconscious. However, he took her pulse. Her pulse had stabilized and she was fine. Even his old illness had been treated, so it would not relapse. Song Dajiang heaved a sigh of relief. After seeing them, he went to the courtyard and asked the servants, Where are Shao Qingyuan and the rest? They're not up yet. After hearing this, Song Dajiang was silent for a while. I'm going to check on them, he said, and strode off toward the guest room. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1387. Martial Nephew by Zhiyan. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong arrived together. Song Dajiang paused for a moment before stepping forward with a serious expression. I'm very sorry about by Muzi. Gu Yundong waved her hand. That's it. You've already used it. No matter what you say, it won't be able to come back. Moreover, he's your martial nephew. Coincidentally, his life was in your hands. Such a choice is inevitable. Gu girl. Gu Yundong was a little tired. She took a deep breath. Anyway, you owe me one. I know. But I also owed you in the past, Gu Yundong said immediately. Song Dejiang was stunned. Gu Yundong smiled bitterly. We can't settle this score. Anyway, I'll continue to look for by Muzi. The next time I find it, I want hand it over to you first. Also, you have to save my mother. All right. Song Dejiang did not know what to say. After a long time he said one word. I'm hungry. Let's eat first. Song Dejiang hurriedly got someone to serve the food. The three people eating in the reception pavilion were very quiet. No one spoke again. This kind of thing seemed to be unnecessary. Until a servant came to report, Old Master, young Master Bai is awake. Song Dejiang was stunned. He threw down his chopsticks and hurriedly ran away. Gu Yundong pinched herself gently. Young Master Bai? What's wrong? Shao Qingyuan wiped her hands. When Song Dejiang threw down his chopsticks just now, the porridge had splashed on the back of Yundong's hand. Gu Yundong suddenly said, Bai? Could young Master Bai be Bai Yang? Yes, Bai Yang's grandfather is Song Dejiang's master. It can't be. Gu Yundong could not be bothered to eat and hurried over to take a look. If it was really that little guy. However, when she saw the person lying on the bed, Gu Yundong finally came to her senses. It was not Bai Yang. Yes, Song Dejiang knew that she knew Bai Yang. If it was him, Song Dejiang would have told her. But this person looked familiar to Gu Yundong. Bai Zhiyan also saw them. His pale lips twitched as he said, Martial uncle has already told me. I'm sorry, I used your Bai Muzi and couldn't tell you in advance. Gu Yundong did not know what to say. Song Dejiang introduced, This is Shao Qingyuan, this is Gu Yundong, the sister Gu that Bai Yang had seen before. Back in Qingyuan Prefecture, she was the one who saved Bai Yang from the human traffickers. When Bai Zhiyan heard this, he immediately wanted to get up. Song Dejiang hurriedly held him down. It's not appropriate for you to move too much now. Bai Zhiyan could only give up and lie back down. However, he still said gratefully to Gu Yundong, Mrs. Shao is the Bai family's great benefactor. You saved Bai Yang, and the medicine I used to treat his illness is yours. I really can't thank you enough. Gu Yundong remembered. Wasn't this the brother Bai that Bai Yang was talking about? Gu Yundong felt that every time she met him, he seemed to be terminally ill. Was he that miserable? For some reason, she actually felt some sympathy for him. However, Gu Yundong still said, Since you're a member of the Bai family, I heard from Bai Yang that the Bai family has 2 Bai Muses, right? If you're grateful, give me one later. Of course. As long as we find the key to the jade door and open it, Bai Muzi will not be the only thing. There will also be a huge reward. Bai Zhiyan said solemnly. He could still make the decision to return Bai Muzi to Gu Yundong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1388. Who is Gao Feng looking for? Gu Yundong was slightly satisfied. Seeing how tired he looked, she did not want to disturb his rest. All right, then we'll leave first. Have a good rest. When I recover, I'll definitely visit again to thank you. Gu Yundong nodded. He was really polite. She and Shao Qingyuan walked out. Seeing that Song Dejiang had followed them out, she simply asked him for a messenger pigeon. Then, she borrowed a brush and paper to write to Gu Dejiang and tell him about Bai Muzi. Gu Yundong held the brush for a long time but did not know how to write. In the end, Shao Qingyuan took it. Didn't I say that I would write it? Shao Qingyuan was much faster at writing. He had always been good at keeping things short, so he finished it in no time. Then, he stuffed it into the small bamboo tube on the messenger pigeon's leg and let it out. Song Dejiang's messenger pigeon was used to exchange medical books with him. It was just useful. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief after the letter was sent out. Her parents should not have set off yet. It was not too late to tell them. Song Dejiang saw that Gu Yundong was still listless. He thought about it and went into the house to take out 2 herbs. This is to compensate you. Gu Yundong did not know him, but Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes slightly. These herbs were the herbs in Song Dejiang's medical books. They were very precious. You're really giving them to us? Song Dejiang nodded. Although he was a little reluctant, he had done something wrong in the first place. It would not make sense if he did not compensate him. Seeing this, Yundong understood something. She paused and returned one of the medicinal herbs. 1 stalk for 1 stalk. There's no need to give more. I'll take this. Song Dezhong looked down and sighed inwardly. Although he was exchanging 1 stalk for another, the one he used was extremely precious to Yundong. It was exceptionally different. But when she said that, Song Dezhong still took it back. Shao Qingyuan put away the remaining one and the two of them were about to leave. At this moment, the medicine boy rushed over and said that Zhiyan's body temperature had risen again, and he asked Song Dezhong to hurry over and take a look. Song Dezhong hurried inside. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were about to leave, but they stopped when they heard this. After all, the man had used Muzi, so they had to show some concern. Therefore, the two of them returned to their rooms. Song Dezhong felt Zhiyan's pulse again and heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this was a normal phenomenon. He turned around and saw Shao Qingyuan enter. He paused and looked at him, then at Zhiyan. Suddenly he said, "Come and take his pulse." Shao Qingyuan frowned slightly, but Zhiyan understood. He immediately smiled and said, "This is a rare opportunity to learn. It's not easy to encounter my illness. Let's give it a try." Yundong pushed him. Only then did Shao Qingyuan step forward and place his hand on his wrist. Zhiyan looked at him for a moment and said, "I heard from Uncle Master that you're very talented in medicine." Cough cough. If Gao Feng finds the key in the future and opens the jade door, there will be many lost books inside. You can take a look. Shao Qingyuan nodded and continued to take the pulse. Yundong found it strange. Isn't Gao Feng looking for someone? He's looking for someone and the key? The key is with that person. As long as we find the person, we will naturally find the key. Yundong's eyes lit up. Last time, Brother Shao met Gao Feng. I think he went to the Xuanhe Prefecture. Who is he looking for? We live in the Xuanhe Prefecture. We might be able to help. Yes, there was strength in numbers. If they helped find the person, they would have the key. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1389. Gao Feng is looking for me. Zhiyan thought for a moment. It wasn't that he couldn't say it. Moreover, Yundong was right. She was familiar with the Xuanhe Prefecture. It might be helpful. Therefore, Zhiyan sighed and said, Gao Feng is looking for a woman. Unfortunately, we don't know her name, age, or address. We only know that 2 years ago, she was about this tall. When he saw Shao Qingyuan retract his hand that was taking his pulse, he raised his hand to indicate the height. Yundong frowned. He did not know her name. With her height from 2 years ago, it was really difficult to find her like this. Then where did he meet that woman? What did they say? What did they do? Yundong asked again. Zhiyan said, although that woman was young, her skills were very good. The biggest clue is that she had a crossbow on her. It's a very exquisite crossbow. Yundong was stunned. A strange look flashed across her face. Shao Qingyuan also looked up at her. The two of them looked at each other and fell silent. Zhiyan continued, at that time, we saw it on the way to escape from the wilderness. It was on the road between Yongning Prefecture and Qingyuan Prefecture. At that time, we encountered 2 bastards who wanted to take advantage of the night to harm Bai Yang and Bai Yu. That girl suddenly appeared and helped to deal with one of them with a crossbow. The other was dealt with by Gao Feng. That girl said that she realized that those 2 people had ill intentions, so she attacked. Yundong widened her eyes in disbelief and looked at Zhiyan in shock. She suspected that she had heard wrongly. On the other hand, Song Dezhong, who was at the side, asked in surprise, the girl Gao Feng is looking for met him on the way to escape? I remember that the Gu girl also escaped from the Yongning Prefecture. Zhiyan was stunned and suddenly looked at Yundong. The latter gulped. After a while, she asked uncertainly, after that, Gao Feng even gave that girl a bag of steamed buns and pancakes? Not long after the girl left, a carriage came into the village. You guys left in the middle of the night? Zhiyan's breathing suddenly stopped, and he suddenly wanted to sit up. However, He got up too quickly and felt dizzy. He fell back hard. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan was sitting on the edge of the bed. He quickly reached out to support her. Song Dajiang said anxiously, "Don't be agitated. Hurry up and lie down. Let's talk slowly." Bai Zhiyan took a while to calm down and suppress the pain. He closed his eyes and turned his head slightly. He looked straight at Gu Yundong. "You. If I'm right, then this person is me." Gu Yundong took a deep breath. She also felt that it was a little magical. She had always known that Gao Feng was looking for someone. The last time she met Bai Yang in Qingyuan Prefecture, she had almost met Gao Feng. In the end, due to a freak combination of factors, Gao Feng left Qingyuan Prefecture early. Later on the way to find his uncle, Shao Qingyuan also met Gao Feng. At that time, they had just come out of the Xuanhe Prefecture, and Gao Feng was on his way to the Xuanhe Prefecture. He had also missed her. Bai Zhiyan stared fixedly at Gu Yundong. His breathing quickened slightly. "Yes, you're right. Gao Feng gave that girl a bag of steamed buns. We also left Tonggu village overnight. Was it really you?" "I don't know the name of the village, but I did experience this before. That was the first time I saw Gao Feng." Gu Yundong paused and suddenly frowned. "But you said that Gao Feng was looking for someone for the key, but I don't know what key it is. Back then, I didn't. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1390. Jade Key. Gu Yundong suddenly stopped mid-sentence. She thought for a moment and asked, "The key to the jade door you mentioned, could it be a jade pendant?" Bai Zhiyan and Song Dajiang smiled in surprise. "Yes, it's a jade pendant. Is it really with you?" "I do have one, but I found the jade pendant from the 2 refugees." Speaking of which, Gu Yundong had almost forgotten about the jade pendant. She had kept it in her interspace back then. Now, she probably had to search carefully. She did not know where it was. That's right. It's on those 2 refugees." Bai Zhiyan became a little excited. That jade pendant was on Bai Yang at that time. The refugees had come into contact with Bai Yang. They must have stolen the jade pendant at that time. That night, he was injured and suddenly had a high fever. He was in a daze. And there was only Gao Feng by his side. He had to take care of himself and Bai Yang and Bai Yu. Actually, Gao Feng already knew when the 2 people entered the courtyard. It was just that he had to take care of Gao Feng, so he couldn't go out in time. In the end, one of them sneaked in and bumped into Bai Yang. That person wanted to carry Bai Yang away on the spot. It was Gao Feng who saved Bai Yang in time, but who knew that in that instant, the jade pendant hanging around Bai Yang's neck would be cut off and taken away by him? The room was dark, so Gao Feng couldn't see clearly. After saving Bai Yang, he let him stay with Bai Yu while he turned around to deal with the refugee and forced the guy into the courtyard step by step. Unexpectedly, the other one outside had already been killed. It was just a chance meeting. There was no need for Gao Feng to ask for her name. However, no matter what, she had helped him deal with someone. Although he could handle it alone, it did give him less pressure. Gao Feng saw that this girl was thin and looked like a refugee, so he simply took the pancakes and steamed buns to express his gratitude. As for the 2 dead people's belongings that the girl had looted behind them, he did not care. Unexpectedly, the jade pendant entered this girl's pocket just like that. Gao Feng only realized that Bai Yang's jade pendant was missing a day after the carriage drove. However, when he looked back at that time, how could he find her in the vast sea of people? Especially when he didn't even know her name and age or who was around her. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, this person was right in front of him. Bai Zhiyan slowly closed his eyes. He didn't even know what to say. Fate in this world was so wonderful. He looked at Gu Yundong. Then, "Where is the jade pendant?" "It's..." Gu Yundong was about to say that she had it with her, but then she realized that something was wrong. Who would carry an unfamiliar jade pendant that they had found on a refugee with them? It was not like she did not have the money to buy one. Hence, Gu Yundong changed her tone and said, "At home." "Which home?" "At the Hatai Alley in the capital, but I have to find it. I remember that when I packed my things, I put everything in a box. I don't know if I remember wrongly." Bai Zhiyan hurriedly became excited. Then quickly look for it. Gu Yundong immediately nodded. All right, I'll go back now. In fact, how could she not be excited? If that jade pendant was really the key, she would be able to obtain by Muzi very soon. This sudden surprise made her a little impatient. Shao Qingyuan also stood up and said to the two of them, "Then we'll go back first. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1391. Where is your home? Seeing the two of them walk further and further away, Song Dajong heaved a sigh of relief. It's rare that the jade pendant is still there. Yes. Bai Zhiyan also felt relieved. He had talked to Gao Feng before. Even if they found him, the jade pendant might not still be in her hands. After all, she was fleeing at that time. She might not have any silver on her along the way. Otherwise, why would she search for dead people's things? When she really could not survive, she might have pawned the jade pendant or sold it. At that time, it would be extremely difficult to find it again. However, Gao Feng had also said that the girl seemed to be quite capable at that time. She had such an exquisite crossbow on her, so she might not be desperate enough to become a jade pendant. Fortunately, the jade pendant was still there. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan did not even bring Tong Shui Tao with them. They drove the carriage back to Hatai Alley. Mrs. Yu, who was at the door, was about to greet them when she saw them return. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong jumped down from the carriage and rushed into the courtyard. On the other hand, Shao Qingyuan was still standing beside the carriage. However, Mrs. Yu was a little afraid of him. In the end, she did not greet him and only stuck her head out to look at the courtyard next door. Sure enough, Gu Yundong came out after a while. When she saw Mrs. Yu, she waved her hand. "Hello, sister-in-law." "Hello, hello." Then she watched helplessly as the carriage moved off again. "Why are you in such a hurry? What happened?" She shook her head and returned to her courtyard. Gu Yundong sat in the carriage, holding the jade pendant in her hand. She did not speak for a long time. After a long time, she lifted the curtain and looked at Shao Qingyuan on the shaft. She pursed her lips and hesitated. Shao Qingyuan turned to look at her and suddenly smiled. "Let's talk about it when you want to." Gu Yundong lowered her head slightly. Others might not know if the jade pendant was in the box, but as the person beside her, how could Shao Qingyuan not know? When they came to the capital, they didn't bring many things with them. Who would bring such an insignificant jade pendant? Gu Yundong had almost forgotten where it was. She had rummaged through her space for a long time before finding it. Actually, she knew that Brother Shao had long suspected her. She had already made it very obvious several times in front of him. How could a smart person like him not feel anything? However, he did not ask anything. Perhaps he already had a guess in his heart, but he was not sure. Gu Yundong scratched her head. It was not that she did not want to say it, but she just did not know how to say it. However, this person seemed to be very indulgent towards her. "All right, sit back down. Be careful not to fall." Shao Qingyuan pushed her inside and let her sit in the carriage. Gu Yundong was a little discouraged and rubbed her face hard. The carriage returned to the Song mansion not long after. The two of them strode towards the main courtyard. Bai Zhiyan and Song Dajiang were getting anxious. Seeing the two of them enter, Bai Zhiyan immediately looked at their hands expectantly. Gu Yundong quickly took out the jade pendant. "Is this it?" Bai Zhiyan took it. At this moment, he was already supported by Song Dajiang to sit at the head of the bed. At first glance, his eyes lit up. "Yes, this is it. This is the jade key to the jade door." "Really?" Gu Yundong finally felt relieved. She asked anxiously, "Then let's quickly take the jade pendant and open the jade door to find by Muzi. Where is your house? When are we going? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1392. It's important to find your parents free. As soon as Gu Yundong finished speaking, Bai Zhiyan and Song Dajiang were stunned. They looked at each other. The atmosphere instantly became a little strange, and neither Bai Zhiyan nor the other spoke. Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes and suddenly reached out to take the jade pendant from Bai Zhiyan's hand. Bai Zhiyan only felt that the jade pendant was gone. Shao Qingyuan looked at Song Dezhang. Why? Are you going back on your word? Of course not. Song Dezhang hurriedly shook his head and explained, the Bai family is in the Lingzhou prefecture, but the Bai family has always been isolated from the world. Outsiders don't know where they are. If you want to enter the Bai family, you need someone from the main family to lead the way. Otherwise, you will get lost. Gu Yundong frowned, and Bai Zhiyan sighed. There are too few people who can enter the Bai family. I can enter, and so can Uncle Master Song. But I can't travel now, and Uncle Master can't leave the capital. I'm afraid I won't be able to go to Lingzhou Prefecture for a while. Spiritual State Prefecture? Gu Yundong frowned. What about Gao Feng? Gao Feng is in Xuanhe Prefecture now. I don't know his exact location, so I can only send a letter to Xuanhe Prefecture's Huimin Medical Center first. After Gao Feng reads the letter, he will rush back. Bai Zhiyan knew that she was anxious, but he still said, why don't you wait a little longer? At most a month. When I recover, I will personally bring you to the Bai family. Although the Bai family had never allowed outsiders to enter, Shao Qingyuan and his wife had done the Bai family a great favor. Be it saving Bai Yang or using their Bai Muzi, the Bai family would remember this favor and compensate them. Bai Zhiyan looked at Shao Qingyuan. This man was very talented. If he could receive guidance from his grandfather, it would be the best repayment. Gu Yundong was silent for a moment before finally nodding. Okay. She glanced at the jade pendant in Shao Qingyuan's hand. But this jade pendant is temporarily in our custody. Although Bai Zhiyan felt that it was inappropriate, he also knew that Gu Yundong no longer trusted them because of Bai Muzi. Hence, he finally nodded and said, this jade pendant is now the only key to the jade door. If it's gone, then Bai Muzi. Don't worry, I care about Bai Muzi more than you do. Therefore, I will definitely take good care of this jade pendant. I definitely won't lose it. That's good. Bai Zhiyan looked at the jade pendant reluctantly and finally retracted his gaze. He was a little tired. The fluctuation of emotions just now made his body temperature rise again. Gu Yundong hoped that he would recover as soon as possible, so she immediately pulled Shao Qingyuan away. The two of them left the Song residence and got into the carriage. Shao Qingyuan asked her, aren't you in a hurry? Gu Yundong smiled. Of course I'm in a hurry. But as you said, we have to do things one by one. Since we're in the capital, we should settle the things here first. It's very important to find your parents. Shao Qingyuan reached out and hugged her. I'm fine. But I'm related. Gu Yundong actually knew that ever since Shao Qingyuan realized that his parents doted on him, his emotions had been a little unstable. Although he did not say anything, he yearned for it in his heart. Shao Qingyuan sighed slightly and hugged her even tighter. When they got home, Gu Yundong put the jade pendant away and hid it back in her space. Since they were going to the prefecture of Spirit State after Bai Zhiyan recovered from his illness, they had to move faster in the capital. The renovation of the shop was handed over to Carpenter Pang and his disciple. Gu Yundong did not know how it was going, but he planned to go and take a look tomorrow. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1393. Recruiting next, it was time to recruit. Gu Yundong felt a headache coming on when he thought of the female shopkeeper he needed. Unexpectedly, Shao Qingyuan said, it's actually not difficult to find a female shopkeeper who's literate and knows the rules while facing the madams and misses of the aristocratic families. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. You have a candidate? There are many grannies from the palace who leave the palace to retire when they're old. Actually, they're very good at this. Gu Yundong was stunned. Yes, Madame Qiu of Xuanhe Manor. Although she was not from the palace, she was still a nanny. Some of the grannies in the palace used to serve nobles. Those who could survive until they left the palace were all slick people. Except... Where can I find a nanny like that? Qin residence. Gu Yundong was puzzled. It was obvious that Shao Qingyuan knew more about this. When the emperor rewarded Qin Wenzheng's residence, he also bestowed servants to the Qin residence. One of them was a nanny. Yes, I heard about it when I was in the palace. Since there was a nanny in the Qin residence, she must have known a nanny who had left the palace. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. She planned to visit the Qin family tomorrow after going to the shop. In addition to this, they also wanted to buy people. Not only in the shop, but also at home. There were only the 4 of them at home now. Gu Yundong usually brought Tong Shui Tao along when she went out, and Shao Qingyuan would also bring Shaowen along. There was always a need for an old maid or a guard at home. The next time they encountered a situation where Song Dajiang came to look for them but couldn't find them, someone would come to inform them. She had been busy for the past few days. Now, it was time to organize it. The next day, Gu Yundong brought Tong Shui Tao to the shop to check on the situation. Shao Qingyuan and Shaowen went to the brokers. When he arrived at the shop, he saw Carpenter Pang busying himself with his 2 disciples. The counter was already done, and more than half of the tables and stools in the shop in front had been made. Gu Yundong touched them. They were very sturdy and did not hurt. Indeed, the quality was good. Carpenter Pang wiped his sweat and came over. "Boss, I've already found a craftsman to remove the 2 walls in the backyard yesterday. They're being repaired now. Do you want to take a look?" "Let's go take a look." Gu Yundong immediately went to the backyard. The craftsman was hired by Carpenter Pang. Gu Yundong handed over the renovation to him. It was up to him to find any helpers. The backyard was a little chaotic. Gu Yundong walked around and came back, letting them continue with their work. Then, he took a brush and paper and started writing. Carpenter Pang was puzzled. "Boss, do you think there's anything else that needs to be changed?" "Oh no, I'm just writing a recruitment notice and posting it outside. I plan to recruit a few female workers. Isn't the shop in need of manpower?" Although they had to buy people, it was impossible for all the employees in the shop to be bought. As long as it was one of their own in the kitchen, the waiters in the hall could be found outside. "Female workers?" Carpenter Pang thought for a moment and suddenly asked, "Do you have any requirements?" "Clean and tidy. It's best if the person who likes to smile and is slightly tall. She has a gentle personality and is hard-working. She also has to be literate." With this calculation, it seemed like she had a lot of requirements. Carpenter Pang was also surprised. This request was more than just a lot. It would probably be difficult to find someone who could read. But Gu Yundong still wrote the notice and pasted it at the door. Before she left, she instructed Carpenter Pang, "If anyone comes to inquire, help me introduce the shop." "All right, boss." Gu Yundong left. As soon as she left, someone who had been staring at the shop came forward and squinted at the words written on the notice. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1394. The shop recruits different workers. After reading the notice carefully from top to bottom, the person knew what to do and turned to leave. Carpenter Pang originally wanted to come out and ask, but he didn't expect to only see his back. That person quickly left Jinlan Street. Not long after, he appeared in a restaurant. He looked left and right. When he saw the person in the corner, he hurriedly ran over. "Young master, there's a situation in the shop on Jinlan Street." Tang Qijing was eating. When he heard this, he quickly swallowed the fish in his mouth and took a sip of water. He asked, "What's the situation?" "Then the shop is going to recruit." Tang Qijing frowned when he heard that. He was a little disinterested. "So be it. What's so strange about that? Since Shao Qingyuan's shop is about to open, isn't it normal to find a couple of assistants? I want you to keep an eye on Shao Qingyuan. You don't have to report these unimportant matters to me." "No, young master, that shop hires different workers." "Different in what way?" "Shao Qingyuan's shop hires female shop assistants." The servant couldn't help but raise his voice. What? However, 2 puzzled voices followed. Not only Tang Qijing, but there was also a familiar voice behind. Tang Qijing was stunned and looked up. When he saw who it was, he hurriedly stood up and almost knocked over the chair behind him. However, he couldn't care less. A smile instantly appeared on his face as he said obsequiously, "Your Highness, why are you here?" Xylan glanced at him. "If you can be here, can't I be here too?" Tang Qijing shook his head again and again. "Of course you can. You can go anywhere in the capital, sir." Xylan snorted and quickly averted his gaze to look at the servant standing behind Tang Qijing. You repeat what you said just now. The servant trembled and was a little confused. What did he just say? Oh, right. He remembered. He immediately repeated the last sentence. That waiter hired by Shao Qingyuan's shop is a female waiter. Zhiyan narrowed his eyes. Shao Qingyuan? Shao Qingyuan came to the capital? Tang Qijing replied softly. Yes, I think so. Zhiyan's dissatisfied gaze instantly landed on him. When did this happen? Why didn't you tell me? However, the imperial physicians outside had been coming back one after another recently. He just didn't pay attention to them. A few days ago, a troupe came to his house, and the scenes they played were quite novel, so he had been staying at home for the past few days to have fun. He didn't expect to miss news of Shao Qingyuan. Tang Qijing groaned inwardly. Your Highness, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but I'm not sure if this person is the same Shao Qingyuan from back then. That's why I got someone to keep an eye on his shop and confirm his identity first before reporting to your Highness. To be honest, he really did not intend to report it to the royal prince. Zhiyan snorted coldly. So it's confirmed now? And not yet. What does this Shao Qingyuan you saw look like? Tang Qijing paused and described Shao Qingyuan's appearance that day. He's tall and big, but his face is a little cold. He doesn't look easy to get along with. Zhiyan's eyes turned cold. It's him. He didn't expect to see him again so soon. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1395. Grudge with Shao Qingyuan. Zhiyan looked down on Shao Qingyuan. He was just a brat from the countryside. This guy had not even grown his hair, yet he dared to boast shamelessly that he had a way to prevent smallpox. What a joke. Even the capital of the imperial hospital couldn't cure this incurable disease that had lasted for thousands of years. Even the old divine doctor of the Bai family didn't say that he could do it. He, who couldn't even take her pulse, actually said that he could solve it? However, the emperor's cousin agreed and even let the second prince test it out himself. This was simply ridiculous. Too ridiculous. The royal bloodline had a noble status. How could they let a brat who came from nowhere do whatever he wanted? Zhiyan disliked Shao Qingyuan because of this. When he heard that Shao Qingyuan was looking for by Muzi, he immediately got someone to spread the news that he had it. He did not expect Shao Qingyuan to agree to be his slave without thinking. This was the first time Zhiyan had spoken to him face to face. How should he put it? Shao Qingyuan was different from the obsequious bumpkin he had imagined. He was also different from some servants who flattered him. Shao Qingyuan was not afraid of him. With his aura, people would believe that he was a descendant of a noble family. For a moment, Zhiyan felt as if he was being unreasonable. He instantly lost the desire to tease him. He casually said that he was joking and asked someone to send him away. Unexpectedly, Shao Qingyuan suddenly went crazy and wanted to beat him up. F***ck, this bastard. He was a royal prince. How could he be beaten up by a bumpkin? Wasn't he just using by Muzi to deceive him? As a royal prince, he was giving the guy face by putting in so much effort to fool him. Did he really think he was a nobody? There were many guards in the mansion, so Zhiyan was not hurt at all. Zhiyan was smug. He had wanted to ridicule Shao Qingyuan, who had been caught, but he did not expect to meet his fierce gaze. Zhiyan felt guilty for a moment when he met his gaze. But he was a royal prince. If he didn't break the guy's legs when the guy wanted to hit him, where would he put his face? However, just as he was about to attack, Shao Qingyuan took out the fish talisman. Zhiyan held her breath. He could deal with Shao Qingyuan, who had no status, but he couldn't touch Shao Qingyuan, who had the fish talisman. Zhiyan could only let him go. However, the emperor's cousin found out about this and summoned him to the palace to scold him. Zhiyan was unhappy, but he couldn't find trouble with Shao Qingyuan anymore. He even had to apologize to him respectfully. Even now, he still remembered this grievance deeply in his heart. Now that he had finally heard news of Shao Qingyuan, he had to vent his anger. Besides, what did he just hear? Zhiyan looked at the servant again. You said that Shao Qingyuan opened a shop? And the shop even recruits female workers? Yes, your highness. Zhiyan raised his hand to touch his chin and narrowed his eyes. After a while he said to Tang Qijing, "Let's go. Bring me to see where that shop is." Tang Qijing's heart was filled with sorrow. He really did not want to get involved in these things. He couldn't afford to offend the royal prince. The Shao Qingyuan he saw last time didn't seem to be someone to be trifled with either. Otherwise, why would even the royal prince suffer? However, in front of the royal prince, Tang Qijing had no room to refuse. He could only smile and nod. He threw the money to pay the bill and walked out of the restaurant with Zhiyan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1396. Candidate Tang Qijing quickly brought Zhiyan to Jinlan Street. This place was not far from Jinlan Street, and they arrived not long after. Standing opposite number 86, Tang Qijing pointed at the shop that was being renovated. "That's the one. It's quite big." Zhiyan nodded. "It's indeed quite big. Is Shao Qingyuan going to open a medical center?" As he spoke, he snorted coldly. In the past, he wasn't even a doctor. The cowpox vaccination method made him completely popular. However, why did he recruit female workers? Zhiyan looked at the notice posted at the door. At this moment, there were already a few people looking at it. He pointed to a guard behind him. "Go, take off that piece of paper and let me take a look." "Yes." The guard quickly walked over and dispersed the onlookers. He tore off the paper. Carpenter Pang was busy and didn't notice. The guard had already handed the notice to Zhiyan. The latter looked at the words written on it. "It's best if he's sweet-looking, eloquent, and literate?" Is he recruiting workers or choosing a wife? Tang Qijing hurriedly said, "Maybe he's doing that dirty thing in the name of recruiting workers." Zhiyan thought so too. Although Shao Qingyuan looked as cold as ice and didn't get close to women, most people with dirty thoughts were hypocrites. Shao Qingyuan might be one of them. In any case, Zhiyan was not stingy with his malicious guesses about Shao Qingyuan. Looking at the notice in his hand, Zhiyan narrowed his eyes slightly. He suddenly had an idea and instructed the guards behind him. Then he left without looking back. Tang Qijing did not hear him clearly. Seeing that the royal prince had left, he quickly followed. The guard pasted the notice back to its original position and walked in another direction. Yundong did not know that she would attract such a person after putting up the notice. After she left the shop, she went straight to the Qin residence. This time, it was much easier to meet the Gu family. Since she was cooperating with the Gu family to open a shop, Yundong went straight to the point. After Madame Gu knew why she was here, she immediately called Nanny Lu over. Nanny Lu was bestowed by the emperor. Granny Lu was shocked to learn that Yundong and Madame Gu were going to open a shop that specialized in serving rich madams and young ladies. They also wanted to hire a capable female shopkeeper. They could even open such a shop? However, she came from the palace and was knowledgeable. She quickly thought of the key point. There were not many things in the palace, but women gathered together. It seemed to be easier to earn women's money. Nanny Lu quickly began to think about the candidates. Not long after, she thought of something. If that's the case, I really have a suitable candidate. Who? Nanny Xia, who used to serve Imperial Concubine Gao. Madame Gu was puzzled. Concubine Gao? Madame Gu vaguely felt that this name sounded familiar. Imperial Concubine Gao was one of the few concubines in the former imperial palace who lived long. The late emperor was muddle-headed, so there were naturally countless concubines in the harem. As long as they were beautiful, many of them were included in his harem. However, although the late emperor liked beauties, these people were not given a high position at the beginning. Even if he occasionally wanted to confer the concubine title on a whim, not long after, he would pull her down because he was tired of this concubine. This happened repeatedly, and there were not many concubines who remained in high positions. Concubine Gao was different. She had followed the late emperor since he was young. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1397. Yundong's Persuasion concubine Gao had risen step by step from the bottom. After rising to the position of consort virtue, she had been in that position and had not come down. The late emperor was capricious, and most of the other concubines were promoted and demoted. In the palace, other than the empress, only Consort sat there steadily. The late emperor had never touched her. If one did not have any tricks up their sleeves, who could do it? Nanny Xia was the capable nanny by concubine Gao's side. After the late emperor's death, concubine Gao's days were instantly quiet. She lived in a corner and was relaxed. Occasionally, she would chat with the Empress Dowager and reminisce about the past. However, she did not know if it was because her nerves had been too tense for the past few years, but when the late emperor passed away, she instantly relaxed. Instead, her body began to adapt. Over the past 2 years, she gradually fell ill. Not long ago, concubine Gao still couldn't hold on and was gone. It was said that the Empress Dowager had been sad for a long time and had closed herself in the palace for 2 days. Concubine Gao had no children. Before she passed away, she also had the intention to arrange for people to serve her. Nanny Xia had originally wanted to guard her tomb, but concubine Gao had flatly rejected her. Later on, Nanny Xia chose to leave the palace. She had entered the palace since she was young. For so many years, other than occasionally leaving the palace to do something, she had almost forgotten the outside world. Nanny Xia still had a trace of regret in her heart, so after concubine Gao passed away, she was released from the palace. Nanny Xia had money and an extraordinary status. After leaving the palace, many wealthy families invited her to the residence to be a nanny. However, they were all rejected by Nanny Xia. She had originally wanted to leave the palace to retire, so she wouldn't implicate herself again. However, what Nanny Xia did not expect was that she had overestimated herself. She was no longer used to life outside the palace. After resting for a while, she felt that she had nothing to do all day. She might as well be a nanny. Just 2 days ago, Nanny Xia had just caught up with Nanny Lu and complained. "Madam, if you think that Nanny Xia is feasible, I'll make a trip on your behalf and tell you about the situation. If it's too late, I'm afraid she'll enter someone else's house to be a nanny." Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. Of course. Nanny Lu thought for a moment. But madam, Nanny Xia is fine in other aspects, but she has always lived in the palace. She has never done business before. Gu Yundong nodded. I know. Aunt and me will give her business suggestions. Nanny Xia mainly mediated the customers' conflicts and looked after the shop assistants. With Nanny Xia's ability, she should be able to easily resolve the other small problems. As for business, she would make a plan and point out the direction. Even if she was not in the capital, there was still Madame Xia. It was enough. Nanny Lu was relieved to hear that. She immediately brought Gu Yundong and Madame Gu to Nanny Xia's residence. If she hadn't arrived in time, Nanny Xia might have really been invited away. When she heard that Gu Yundong wanted her to be a female shopkeeper, Nanny Xia refused at first. She was not familiar with business, and she had never thought of being a female shopkeeper. Seeing this, Gu Yundong smiled and said, "Nanny Xia, don't be in a hurry to refuse. Now that you have nothing to do, why don't you get to know our shop first? I'm recruiting female workers tomorrow. If Nanny Xia is free, why don't you go and watch the show?" Nanny Xia was stunned. Nanny Lu also persuaded her, so she agreed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1398. Newly bought servants. It was already very late when Gu Yundong came out of Nanny Xia's house. She bade farewell to Madame Gu and brought Tong Shuitao home. Shao Qingyuan had already returned. Other than him and Shao Wen, there were 6 people standing at home. They were servants that Shao Qingyuan had bought from the brokerage today. There were 2 older people. They were a couple with the surname Tian. Uncle Tian, Aunt Tian, and their son was called Tian Zhuang. From now on, Uncle Tian would be the gatekeeper. Auntie Tian would help wash clothes and cook at home, and Tian Zhuang would help Shao Qingyuan. The other 3 were all women. 2 of them were about 30 years old, and one was about the same age as Tong Shuitao. These 3 were prepared for the shop. One of the older women was surnamed Zhou, and the other was surnamed Chen. The young girl was called Zhua Wenzheng. They looked honest and clean. After Gu Yundong saw them, she left them to their work. The 6 of them immediately went to work. They were quiet and diligent. Gu Yundong then returned to his room with Shao Qingyuan and told him about Nanny Xia. Shao Qingyuan said, Nanny Xia didn't reject me outright, which means that she's actually curious. In less than 2 days, you can convince her. That's what I thought. Gu Yundong was actually not too worried about Nanny Xia. Instead, she was worried that it would be difficult to recruit people. Let's not talk about anything else. It doesn't seem easy to be literate. Shao Qingyuan poured her a cup of hot tea. Not necessarily. The capital is under the emperor. Compared to the Xuanhe prefecture, there are more literate women. That made sense, but Gu Yundong was still worried that no one would come to apply for the job tomorrow. However, the next day, she still woke up early to freshen up. She picked up Nanny Xia in high spirits and went to the shop on Jinlan Street. The few of them had just arrived outside the shop when they saw a lot of people surrounding the door. Gu Yundong was shocked and hurried forward. Only then did she realize that everyone was looking at the notice posted at the door. Some people were even surrounding Carpenter Pang and asking questions. Is what this notice says true? Is it really recruiting workers? But why female workers? That's right. What kind of business is this shop of yours? It can't be some indecent place, right? Someone burst into laughter and said disdainfully, You can't do that kind of business on this street. Ha ha. Gu Yundong frowned fiercely. She heard Carpenter Pang's anxious voice. No, you've misunderstood. This shop is a serious business, and the customers are all women, so the boss recruits female workers. The customers are all women? Don't joke. How can there be such a shop? Even the silver shop that sells gold and silver jewelry won't stop men from entering, right? I think the owner of this shop might be doing something shameful. The Ding family next door thought that this place hires embroiderers. They even said that they wanted their daughter to try it. I think it's better to forget it. I'm worried about such a strange shop. Besides, the embroiderer should be in the job description if it's desired. Who would write female workers? Don't you think so? The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She turned around and saw Nanny Xia coming over and looking at him with a faint smile. Gu Yundong broke out in a cold sweat. Just as she was about to speak, she saw a pretty girl walk over and say to the people around the door, Sorry, can you make way? I want to go in. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1399. She's the boss? Gu Yundong paused slightly when she heard this voice. The girl walked directly to Carpenter Pang and asked, I want to register. May I know where your boss is? Carpenter Pang heaved a sigh of relief and quickly said, The owner will be here at 7 in the morning. Miss, come in and wait. After a pause he quickly added, Miss, don't worry. The owner is also a woman. As soon as she said this, Gu Yundong saw the girl relax slightly. It was obvious that she was a little nervous just now. She mustered her courage to walk forward. Gu Yundong turned her head, but from the corner of her eyes, she suddenly saw Nanny Xia's surprised expression. What is it? Nanny Xia smiled and shook her head, not saying anything. Gu Yundong shrugged and retracted her gaze. Then, she saw that there were actually a few girls surrounding the shop. Perhaps they had heard the discussions of the people beside them, so they had been huddled in a corner and did not dare to go forward. Now that they saw someone take the lead, 2 of their eyes became firm and they began to walk forward. One of them hurriedly followed behind the pretty girl. She was much better looking and walked to Carpenter Pang's side. I want to sign up too. Carpenter Pang invited the people who came to register directly. The shop in front had already been cleaned up by him. The tables and chairs were placed elsewhere, so the shop seemed a little empty. After the girl went in, 2 more girls came. Behind them, 3 young women also came in one after another. After that there was nothing. Seeing that it was almost time, Gu Yundong walked forward. The people at the door thought that she was also here to answer the call, so they made way for her to enter. Unexpectedly, Carpenter Pang saw her and immediately shouted in surprise, Boss! Boss! With a whoosh, everyone's eyes fell on Gu Yundong. The few girls who had been standing silently at the side of the shop immediately looked over and looked at them nervously. Only the delicate girl looked at Nanny Xia in surprise. However, she quickly retracted her gaze. But Gu Yundong keenly sensed that she seemed to be relieved. She raised her eyebrows slightly. Could it be that she knew Nanny Xia? Gu Yundong smiled and said, "Hello, I'm the owner of this shop. I think everyone has seen the notice. Because our shop is in the business of female customers, the workers we hire, whether they do odd jobs or not, will all be women. This way, even if everyone works in the shop, you don't have to worry about being gossiped about. Without a man, there would be fewer people gossiping outside." Someone at the door asked curiously, "What kind of business is that?" Gu Yundong turned her head and smiled. "You'll know when it opens. Why are you still keeping it a secret? If you don't explain everything clearly, will you be able to recruit anyone?" Gu Yundong had already turned around and entered. Nanny Xia followed behind her. When they reached the corner of the shop, Gu Yundong asked Tong Shui Tao to move a table and chair to the side. Then, she took out a brush and paper. Everyone looked at her actions in confusion. Even Nanny Xia, who was sitting behind her, looked curious. Gu Yundong raised her head and said to the 7 people in front of her, "All right, since you've come in, you must want this job. To put it bluntly, our shop is actually a tea house, but it's different from the tea houses outside. We only entertain female guests. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1400. Mei Hong. Gu Yundong was speaking. The onlookers outside the door were very curious, but they were far away and could only see what they were doing. They could not hear anything. In an instant, the curiosity of the people outside increased. Some people even wanted to squeeze in, but after taking 2 steps, they were blocked at the door by Carpenter Pang and his 2 disciples. Gu Yundong pretended not to hear the commotion outside. She briefly explained the situation of the shop and then picked up her pen. "Now, you can introduce yourselves briefly. Tell me why you came to the shop and what you're best at." The 7 people in front of her looked at each other, not knowing what to say. In the end, the delicate girl who was the first to enter stepped forward and said with a slightly calm expression, "Boss, I'll go first." "Okay." This girl's voice was quite pleasant and her words were smooth. "My name is Mei Hong. I'm 26 years old this year and live at the entrance of South Bridge Alley. My family is poor and I have young siblings to take care of, so I came out to find work. I can endure hardships. I can serve tea and water very steadily. I know how to make tea and know a little about tea. There's no problem with being a shop assistant." Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Her family was poor, but she knew how to drink tea? When she mentioned serving tea, could it be that she used to be a servant of some family? Gu Yundong nodded and placed the piece of paper with her situation on the side. Then she said, "Next." With the first one taking the lead, it was much easier for the second one to come up. "My name is Wei Xiaoxiang. I'm 15 years old this year and live on Dafeng Street. I'm also poor and really need this job. Boss, please accept me. I'll be very obedient and diligent. I can take any hardship." Gu Yundong quickly raised her hand to interrupt her. "What are you good at?" Compared to Mei Hong, this girl seemed a little flustered. Wei Xiaoxiang was stunned. She lowered her voice and said softly, I know how to wash clothes and cook. I also know how to serve tea and water. I also know how to embroider and wipe the table. Yes, I wipe the table especially clean." Gu Yundong nodded. "I understand. Stand over there first. Next." When Wei Xiaoxiang heard her say this, she immediately felt a little dejected. She thought about what she had just said and then Mei Hong's words. She suddenly felt that there was no hope for her and regretted her performance just now. The next person to come out was the pretty girl. This girl was the second to enter the shop with Mei Hong. As soon as she stepped forward, a smile appeared on her face, instantly making people feel that this girl was very likable. With that smile, everybody felt the surrounding atmosphere lighten, and she was in a good mood. The girl took a deep breath and said, My name is Zhang Yingyue. I'm 14 years old this year and my family is in Jiufeng Alley. My father has passed away, and my mother and I are the only ones in the family who rely on each other. All along, my mother has only taken on washing clothes outside. The weather has been cold these days, and my mother has frostbite on her hands. She fell ill and needs money to buy medicine. I saw that this place is recruiting female workers, so I came over to try. Gu Yundong nodded as she listened. Zhang Yingyue continued, I know how to embroider. I also know how to take care of people. I also know how to wash clothes, cook, and tidy up the house. I've always been the one tidying up my house. Gu Yundong knew what she was doing. Okay, next. The next one was a woman, about 27 or 28 years old. Although she was also nervous, she was much calmer once she spoke. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1401. Interview Method. I am Mrs. G, 27 years old this year. Gu Yundong interrupted her. Just tell me your name. If they worked in a shop, she had to know their name. Otherwise, they would be called Mrs. Tang or Mrs. Zhang. Gu Yundong felt a headache when she heard that. The woman quickly nodded. My name is Tang Lihua. I'm 27 years old this year and my family is also on Dafeng Street. My husband used to work to earn some money to live, but he fell some time ago and our family lost our income. I wanted to find some work. I know how to cook and clean the house. Gu Yundong nodded. All right, I understand. Next. The people behind might have already prepared a script in their hearts. Now their speech was much smoother. Gu Yundong memorized everything and waited for everyone to register. Unexpectedly, Carpenter Pang brought 5 more girls. They must have seen it outside just now and mustered their courage to give it a try. Gu Yundong also asked them to introduce themselves. Interestingly, one of them was a girl with the surname Ding. She seemed to be the neighbor people mentioned at the door who had come to apply for an embroidery job. Gu Yundong looked at the list of 12 names in her hand. She thought for a moment and handed it to Nanny Xia behind her. Nanny, take a look. Nanny Xia took it. Your recruitment technique is quite novel. With that, she lowered her head and looked at it seriously. When Gu Yundong saw this, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. She felt that she had succeeded halfway. She turned around again and faced the girl opposite her. Which of you can read? Her notice said that it was best to be literate, but she did not expect everyone to be so. As expected, more than half of the people shook their heads. There was only Mei Hong, Zhang Yingyue, Miss Ding, and Miss Li. Forget it. It was already very rare for a girl to know a few words in this day and age. She should be content. Gu Yundong knew what was going on. She stood up and said, Now, I want to see how you guys do your jobs. As she spoke, she said to them, Follow me. The 12 of them looked at each other. Miss Mei Hong was the first to follow. Zhang Yingyue was second. Seeing this, the others followed her to the backyard. Gu Yundong brought them to the kitchen. The kitchen was already prepared. Although it was not completely tidied up or fully equipped, it was enough for the interview. 3 out of 12 people entered the house. Gu Yundong asked them to boil water. Then, she made tea and placed it on the table outside. It was a very simple thing. For these people in front of them, they might be used to it. This time, Gu Yundong specified which 3 people would go in first. Soon, the first batch of tea was boiled and brought out. Perhaps because they were too nervous, one of them suddenly tripped halfway through serving tea and knocked the cup over on the tray. Fortunately, she was quick-witted and managed to stabilize the tray in time. However, the hot tea still splashed out and burned the back of the girl's hand. Tong Shui Tao immediately brought her to cold water. Gu Yundong gave her the ointment. The girl was about to cry. She felt that she had messed up. But Gu Yundong did not say anything and let the people behind continue. After everyone had tried it, Gu Yundong let everyone come to the shop in front again. Everyone looked at her, feeling very uneasy. Gu Yundong smiled and said, All right, today's interview is over. I already know what to do. Everyone, go back first. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1402. I think highly of these 2. As soon as Gu Yundong finished speaking, someone immediately asked, Boss Gu, which of us passed? Those who pass, I'll post your names in the shop tomorrow. When everyone heard this, they were a little disappointed. In that case, were they still going to worry and be nervous for the entire day? Some people felt that their performance was very poor and were already in despair. Actually, this was also good. They did not have to watch the people around get hired. They could just come over tomorrow to ask. The 12 of them walked out one by one. There were still people waiting at the door. Seeing them come out, they immediately surrounded them. Yundong looked up at the door. The others shook their heads and left. Only a lady and a woman were talking to everyone. Yundong smiled. She took the list and crossed out their names. When the commotion outside stopped, Yundong looked at Nanny Xia. "Nanny, what do you think?" Nanny Xia gave her a sidelong glance. "It's your shop that's hiring. Why are you asking me?" Yundong nodded and spread out the list on the table in front of her. Then she tapped on one of the names and said, "I think highly of this Mei Hong. She's steady and capable. Just as she said, she's very skilled and stable in serving tea. No matter who she's facing, she can quickly adjust her emotions. Her words are simple and straightforward. She doesn't drag her feet. She has a strong understanding and quick thinking." Nanny Xia had said not to hire her, but since Yundong had spoken, she would still answer. "It's indeed not bad." Yundong looked at her with a smile. "Nanny Xia is an old acquaintance of hers, right?" Nanny Xia was stunned and looked at her in surprise. "You?" When Mei Hong saw the nanny, she was stunned. Later, when Mei Hong spoke, the nanny's expression would become serious, and she could not help but pay more attention. Yundong said, "I guess that Mei Hong should also be from the palace." "A palace maid?" When Nanny Xia looked at Yundong again, her gaze was different. She had been immersed in the palace for many years. Putting everything else aside, it was not a problem for her to control her facial expression. Even if she had been out of the palace for a period of time, she would not be so relaxed that anyone could tell. The young lady in front of her was really surprising. Seeing that she was sizing her up, Yundong straightened her back slightly. "How is it? Do you think I'm extremely smart and meticulous? Are you convinced by my charm and plan to be my female shopkeeper?" Nanny Xia was speechless. This girl was actually so thick-skinned. She couldn't help but laugh. She reached out and tapped her. Nanny Xia did not answer and only asked, "What about the others?" Yundong smiled contentedly. "Oh, you're taking the initiative to care about the female staff in the shop. You still say that you're not convinced by my charm?" Yundong quickly began to read the information of the others excitedly. She took out one of them. "Actually, I think this Zhang Yingyue is not bad. Her smile is indeed very sweet, although it's not very sincere. Moreover, she's literate and smart. She won't be in the limelight and knows her limits. Since there are so many advantages, what other concerns do you have?" "Her motive is not simple." Yundong sighed faintly. She placed Zhang Yingyu's information in a pending position, her eyes filled with pity. Nanny Xia had a whole new level of respect for her this time. No wonder Mrs. Qin was willing to work with her and was so close to her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1403. Seduce Shao Qingyuan. At this moment, Zhang Yingyue, who had been waiting for Yundong, hurriedly walked towards a rouge shop not far away after leaving the shop. After entering the rouge shop, she entered the backyard. There were 2 people sitting there, playing chess and waiting for her. However, Prince Zhiyan was the only one who was bored out of his mind. Tang Qijing, who was sitting opposite him, felt very uncomfortable. He did not want to play chess, but he had no choice but to accompany the prince. It was fine if he accompanied him, but he could not win against the prince who was playing chess randomly. He had suffered too much. When he saw Zhang Yingyue, the royal prince threw away the chess piece in his hand and immediately asked her excitedly, "How is it?" Zhang Yingyue bowed and said, "I didn't see the owner surnamed Shao that the royal prince mentioned. The owner who came is a woman with the surname Gu." "A woman?" Not only Zhiyan, but even Tang Qijing, who was behind him, was surprised. "How can it be a woman?" "It's indeed a woman," Zhang Yingyue said, "but this boss Gu has a married woman's hairstyle. I guess she should be the wife of boss Shao." "Shao Qingyuan is married?" "Oh yes. I remember that he used to have a fiancée in the countryside." Zhiyan sat back down. "In that case, it's not Shao Qingyuan who wants to recruit female workers. It's her wife?" He frowned and said to Zhang Yingyue, Tell me everything that happened today. Yes. Zhang Yingyue explained everything in detail, no matter how big or small it was. She was very clear. Yi Xilan and Tang Qijing looked at each other. There was such a way to recruit people? It sounds like Shao Qingyuan's wife is quite capable. Her actions don't seem like she's from the countryside at all. Is there a mistake? Tang Qijing also nodded at the side. Actually, he felt that not only Mrs. Shao, but even Shao Qingyuan didn't look like he came from the countryside. However, he did not dare to say this. On the other hand, Zhang Yingyue thought for a moment and said, "There has always been a very powerful old woman following behind Mrs. Shao." You mean someone is guiding her from behind? Zhang Yingyue thought so, but she was not sure. Yi Xilan asked again, "Then how did you perform today? What do you think of your chances of being chosen?" Zhang Yingyue was still very confident about this. "I'll follow the royal prince's instructions. I won't stand out or fall behind. My performance is all right. I meet the standards of the female worker that Boss Gu wants. No problem." "All right, you can do it in that shop first. If you have the chance, seduce Shao Qingyuan for me. I want to tear off his hypocritical face. It's best if his wife makes a big deal out of it. At that time, let's see who else in the capital still thinks that he has an outstanding character." Zhang Yingyue was actually not very willing to do this, but she had to listen to the royal prince's orders. Her mother's illness still needed the royal prince to treat her. Hence, she lowered her head and agreed. After Yi Xilan sent her away, he thought about it and still felt that something was wrong. He found his guard. "Go and investigate for me. Whose shop is that? Is it the Nye family's?" "Yes, sir." The guard received the order and left. Not long after, he returned with news in the afternoon. The shop still belongs to Miss Nye, but the person who is operating the shop now is Shao Qingyuan's wife, the Gu family, and... The guard paused before saying, "Qin Wenzheng's wife. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1404. He must open a husband and wife shop. Yi Xilan was stunned. "You mean Qin Wenzheng?" "Yes." The guard could only find out this much for the time being. Firstly, the time was limited, and secondly, the clues were really limited. He couldn't even figure out what business the shop for. After all, few people knew. Yi Xilan frowned tightly. Qin Wenzheng was not to be trifled with at all. Although he did not have any conflict with Qin Wenzheng was now his cousin's favorite. Qin Wenzheng's wife had opened a shop. If he caused any trouble, Qin Wenzheng would be angry. Yi Xilan felt a headache coming on. No wonder Shao Qingyuan is so arrogant. It turns out that he has such a good relationship with Qin Wenzheng. So the powerful old woman that Zhang Yingyue mentioned was borrowed by the Qin family? Your Highness, wasn't Qin Wenzheng in the Xuanhe prefecture previously? Shao Qingyuan is the same. They might have known each other at that time, Tang Qijing said. Yi Xilan thought so too. Tang Qijing asked carefully, "Then do you still want Miss Zhang to seduce Shao Qingyuan?" "Why not?" Yi Xilan snorted. Shao Qingyuan can't resist the temptation because there's something wrong with his character. Qin Wenzheng can't blame me. Besides, I'm not afraid of Qin Wenzheng. I'm a dignified royal prince after all. If I don't like Shao, can't I cause trouble for him? Do I have to worry about whether there's anyone behind him? Tang Qijing echoed, that's right. Shao Qingyuan has a problem with his character. He can't blame the royal prince. Yi Xilan nodded. Besides, I'm helping Mrs. Shao see her husband's true colors. The corners of Tang Qijing's mouth twitched. You make it sound like you're very familiar with Mrs. Gu. Gu Yundong, who was forced to see her husband's true colors, had already packed up the name list and returned to Hatai Alley. As soon as she entered, she smelled the faint smell of medicine in the courtyard. She followed the smell and indeed saw 2 bags of herbs in the storeroom. Shao Qingyuan was checking when he heard her footsteps. He turned around and asked, "You're back? Did you recruit the female shop assistants?" "More or less. I already have someone in mind." She walked over, and Shao Wan, who was also in the warehouse, immediately pulled Tianzhuang out, leaving the room for the 2 of them. Gu Yundong looked at the bags in front of her. "You went to collect herbs today?" Yes, all the herbs we collected today are finished, Shao Qingyuan said. There are a lot of good herbs in the capital. Then when do you plan to open a herb shop in the capital? You have to strike while the iron is hot. With Shao Qingyuan's current reputation in the capital, his business would definitely not be bad if he opened a shop. There are no suitable shops on Jinlan Street for rent. Gu Yundong wanted to laugh. Every time this guy looked for a shop, it would be best if it was adjacent to her own shop. He had to set up a couple's shop. Truly interesting. But how could it be so easy in this world? She walked over and hugged his waist. Jinlan Street is used to open a milk tea shop. My future Gus wouldn't be open there. You can find a medicinal shop first. Later, my Gus will open near your medicinal shop. Shao Qingyuan thought about it and agreed. Although he felt that Jinlan Street was not bad, it would be best if Gus opened there. This way, they would be able to promote each other and business would be better. However, the shops on Jinlan Street were too difficult to buy. Nye Shuang had picked up a bargain. It was probably not easy for them to buy a shop in the short term. Shao Qingyuan thought that perhaps he should buy a couple of shops not far from Jinlan Street. Therefore the next day, Shao Qingyuan went to Nanka Street, which was adjacent to Jinlan Street. As for Gu Yundong, she carried the paper with the name list and went to the shop. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1405. The last place. As soon as she reached the entrance of the shop, she saw more people than yesterday. The moment Gu Yundong appeared, everyone silently looked at her. Not only the onlookers, but also the 12 women who came to apply for the job yesterday. There were also a few other women beside them. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows and walked into the shop expressionlessly, followed by Nanny Xia and Tong Shui Tao. As soon as she entered, the 12 people behind her followed. They looked a little nervous, and their hands were tightly clenched. Even Mei Hong, who had always been calm, was no exception. Gu Yundong had wanted to post the name list, but seeing that everyone was here, it was unnecessary to post it again. Since that was the case, she would announce it directly. Her gaze swept across the faces of the 12 people and finally landed on Mei Hong. Mei Hong was stunned. Her heart skipped a beat. She stared intently at Gu Yundong's mouth and heard her say her name. Mei Hong, you've been accepted. Mei Hong's eyes lit up. Although she was a little confused about the word accept, she still understood. She had been chosen. Mei Hong immediately took a step forward and said excitedly, "Thank you, boss. I'll do my best." Gu Yundong asked her to stand on the left first before looking at the next name. Tang Lihua. Tang Lihua was the 27-year-old woman. When she heard her name, she was stunned for a moment before she raised her head and looked at her nervously. Gu Yundong smiled. To the left. To the left? That was beside Mei Hong. Tang Lihua's eyes lit up. Thank you, boss. I will do a good job too." She was actually chosen. She couldn't believe it. She clearly didn't perform very well previously. At that time, she had thought for a long time but could not think of what she was good at. When she returned, she had already given up. She was just unwilling to give up today, so she came over early to wait. Actually, she was already thinking about what other work she could do. He did not expect her to be chosen. Tang Lihua lightly walked to Mei Hong's side. When the remaining people saw this, they couldn't help but feel more confident. If even Tang Lihua could be chosen, they definitely wouldn't have a problem. After all, in their impressions, they were better than Tang Lihua. Gu Yundong looked at the next person's name. Wei Xiuxiang, to the left. Wei Xiuxiang was stunned. Her face was filled with surprise. She had actually been chosen? She looked at Tang Lihua, who was already standing on the left. She and Tang Lihua lived on Dafeng Street, so they knew each other. When they returned home yesterday afternoon, the two of them had already given up hope. Unexpectedly, there was a silver lining. Gu Yundong lowered her head and read the next name. Ding Rujun, to the left. She was the daughter of the family that had thought that it was an embroidery job. Her performance yesterday was not bad. She was not outstanding, but she was not bad either. She was a steady person. Ding Rujun exhaled and stood beside Mei Hong. There were already 4 of them. Gu Yundong looked at the remaining people and said, "I'll only recruit 5 people this time. There's still one last spot. What? The rest of the people looked at her in shock. Their confident expressions just now were shattered by this sentence. They were filled with disbelief. Zhang Yingyue found it even harder to understand. How could this be? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1406. I want hire a gossiper. Zhang Yingyue felt that her performance was better than the others. Although she could not compare to Mei Hong, she was only second to her. How could the boss have chosen Tang Lihua? But she was still nervously waiting for the last spot. This was not right. What criteria did Boss Gu use to select people? Gu Yundong swept her gaze across everyone's faces. At this moment, everyone regained their nervousness and held their breaths. After a moment, Gu Yundong finally fixed his gaze on her. Zhang Yingyue on the left. Zhang Yingyue was stunned. Just now, she was still a little indignant and incomprehensible, but now that she suddenly heard her name, she could not react for a moment. It was only when Wei Xiaoxiang called out to her that she shuddered and quickly walked to the left. The remaining 7 people were all eliminated. Everyone looked at each other, feeling that it was a little unreal. Until Gu Yundong stood up and said, "All right, the 5 people that our shop wants to recruit this time are here. The others have also performed well, but we need limited manpower. I can only apologize." As soon as he finished speaking, someone suddenly reacted and shouted, "Wait, I'm not convinced." Gu Yundong looked up at the woman who spoke. The woman panicked for a moment, but she was quickly overwhelmed by anger. She shouted, "Why? Why can't we be chosen? Why can they be chosen? That Tang Lihua doesn't know anything and doesn't even dare to speak loudly. How can she be a female shop assistant like this? Does she dare to talk to customers? That's right, there's also that Wei Xiaoxiang. When she came out with the tea tray earlier, she couldn't even walk steadily and knocked over the teacup. How can someone like her be chosen? Who here doesn't do better than her? Could it be that the boss pities her because she was hurt?" Another girl echoed. Tang Lihua and Wei Xiaoxiang, who were mentioned, were a little angry. They wanted to refute, but they couldn't say anything. Actually, they were also very puzzled. With their performance, why did the boss choose them? Gu Yundong looked at the 2 people who were talking and smiled. "Do you want to know why they were chosen but you weren't?" The 2 of them heard Gu Yundong's cold voice and felt a little flustered. However, they still nodded. "Yes. Otherwise we won't be convinced." "All right, then I'll tell you." Gu Yundong smiled. "To be honest, I only decided not to choose others after thinking about it repeatedly. But you were eliminated by me the moment you stepped out of the shop." The 2 of them were stunned and asked her in disbelief, "Why?" "Because you guys talk too much. When you left the shop yesterday, everyone else left with their heads lowered. Only you guys, facing the questions of the onlookers outside, told them almost everything that happened in the shop. I want to recruit workers, not gossipers." The 2 of them blushed. Gossipers? How could they be gossipy? They were extroverts. As employees, weren't they very enthusiastic about everyone? Moreover, the people outside had always wondered what improper business this shop was doing, so they were helping the shop clarify. They still had credit. In short, the 2 of them would never admit that they could not hide anything. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1407. What's the problem? The 2 of them wanted to retort, but Gu Yundong smiled and asked, "Do you think I'm wrong?" As she spoke, Tong Shuai-Tao took a few steps forward and grabbed a thick table leg in her hand. Then she easily raised it above her head. The 2 of them opened their mouths, and a trace of fear flashed across their faces. The thought of not letting others have an easy time was instantly slapped away. Causing trouble? That was impossible. Didn't they see that this young lady was not to be trifled with at such a young age? Satisfied, Gu Yundong looked at the rest. They looked at each other and did not dare to speak. After a while someone said, "Boss Gu then. Well, leave first?" "Yes." Gu Yundong nodded. The others pushed and left quickly. The remaining ones were the 5 people chosen by Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong looked at them and asked, "Is there a problem?" Mei Hong had no problem with Gu Yundong's choice. In fact, she had seen everyone's performance yesterday and more or less guessed the reason why they were chosen. Neither did Zhang Yingyue. The remaining 3 people looked at each other and thought for a moment before asking, We want to know why we were chosen. It's very simple, because you work nimbly and cleanly. I want to recruit people who work. If you can do the work well, it's better than anything. It doesn't matter if you're timid. It doesn't matter if you don't dare to speak loudly. I'll arrange your work according to the situation. It wasn't just the front desk. Logistics also needed manpower. Tang Lihua was timid, but when she was boiling water yesterday, she carefully wiped the cup clean. After the cup was used up, she rinsed it twice and heated it with hot water before returning it to its original position. She was the only one who could do this. Gu Yundong had even asked her why she had used hot water to boil it. Tang Lihua said that her man was sick and could not get out of bed. He had to drink medicine every day. A doctor had suggested that she use hot water to boil the teacups, bowls, and chopsticks that her man had used. Hence, she naturally did so yesterday. Gu Yundong did not say anything after hearing that, but he had already decided on her in his heart. As for Wei Xiaoxiang, she almost tripped while holding the tray, but she tried her best to stabilize the tray. As a result, the teacup overturned, but the tea in the cup only splashed onto the back of her hand. The person standing beside her was not affected at all. As for Ding Rujun, perhaps because she was good at embroidery, she was used to sitting for a few hours and was very patient. There was also Zhang Yingyue. Initially, Gu Yundong did not want to recruit her. What was the point of recruiting her if not to cause trouble for himself? However, Nanny Xia felt that it was not impossible to recruit this person. Zhang Yingyue was smart. The shop needed such a person. As for whether she would cause trouble, Nanny Xia expressed that she could guide her back to the right path and see what she wanted to do. After all, even if Zhang Yingyue was eliminated this time, who knew if she would find another opportunity to do something? Since Gu Yundong had chosen Nanny Xia to be the female shopkeeper, she naturally trusted her. That was why these 5 people were chosen in the end. Actually, there were still a few people. Their shop still had the backyard and the second floor. Other than the waiters, they also needed help from the kitchen. Fortunately, Madame Gu would find 2 people to help. Gu Yundong looked at them again. Are there any other questions? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1408. Salary. The 5 of them looked at each other. Mei Hong took a deep breath and took a step forward. I want to know. How much is our salary? Gu Yundong glanced at her and Mei Hong became a little nervous. However, she had no choice. She still had her younger siblings to support at home. She cared a lot about money. Gu Yundong smiled and said, For the salary, it will be set at 5 taels a month. If your job is done well, it will increase in the future. In addition, there will be gifts distributed during the festivals. Every season, the shop will prepare 2 sets of clothes for you to change into. Just as Gu Yundong finished speaking, joy flashed across the faces of the 5 people in front of her. A monthly salary of 5 taels of silver? That was much more than some shop assistants. Moreover, the boss said that if they did well in the future, the salary would increase. There were even gifts and clothes. This treatment was not inferior to that of those large restaurants. In fact, they had long wanted to ask about the salary, but they did not dare to. It was not easy for women to find work. It was not easy for them to find a stable job. No one wanted to give up. It was better to have less money than to have work today but not tomorrow. However, now that they heard that the salary was more than they had imagined, how could they not be surprised? However, Gu Yundong still had a but. As you can see, the shop is still under repair. It will probably take another month or so for it to open for business, so you won't be able to start work in the short term. However, it's not like you don't have anything to do. In this month you have to train first to understand how to receive customers, understand what kind of business our shop is doing, and grasp the most basic service skills. Don't worry, I'll still pay you. The 5 of them were a little surprised. She actually gave them a salary for training them? They had never heard of anyone being paid as an apprentice. However, it had to be said that this was what they needed. Without any income for a month, It was difficult for them to maintain their lives. Hence, the 5 of them nodded. Yes, boss. We understand. All right, I have 5 contracts here. Mei Hong knows how to read. You can read it to everyone. If you have no objections, sign it and put your thumbprint on it first. Yundong's recruitment conditions and some things to take note of were really different from ordinary employers. At this moment, she had even written the contract. Mei Hong went forward and read the contract. In fact, the contract was very simple. Yundong asked everyone to keep the matter in the shop a secret. Whoever leaked it would have to pay compensation. There were also some other rules and regulations. However, what surprised Mei Hong and the others was that this contract not only restricted them, but also the owner. Yundong could not fire them for no reason. If there was no valid reason, she would have to compensate them for 2 months of work. They had never seen a boss write a contract to restrain herself. For some reason, they felt relieved. They felt that working in such a shop would be very warm and reassuring. Everyone stepped forward. Those who were literate signed on it, and those who were illiterate pressed their fingerprints on it. Qingyuan hesitated for a moment when she was pressing her thumbprint. She looked at the terms with a complicated expression. It was unknown what she was thinking. After a long time, she pressed her fingers down heavily. After the matter was settled, Yundong put away the contract and said, "From tomorrow onwards, go to the Shao residence at 25 Hatai Alley. I will arrange for you to study." "Yes, boss." Yundong nodded and left with Nanny Xia and Tong Shui Tao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1409. Sister-in-law you wants to go. The 5 people in the shop looked at each other. No one knew who laughed first, but the others couldn't help but smile. Mei Hong said, "In the future, we will work together in the shop. It's not easy for women to find work outside. Let's cherish it." As she spoke, she glanced at Qingyuan. Qingyuan did not notice that the others were still excited. When she heard this, she nodded heavily. After chatting for a while, they left the shop feeling relaxed and went home happily. Qingyuan was the same. Her footsteps were hurried, but she still walked towards the rouge shop she had gone to yesterday. However, the moment she stepped into the rouge shop, she stopped in her tracks. She thought of what Yundong had said and the contract that was fair to both parties. She hesitated. After a while, she stepped through the door and said to the shopkeeper of the rouge shop, "Tell the royal prince that I've been chosen." With that, Qingyuan left in a hurry without saying anything else. The shopkeeper opened his mouth and wanted to ask something, but all he could see was her back. Yundong did not know that a certain someone had started to waver even before she was prepared to train her. After sending Nanny Xia back, she saw that it was still early, so she went to the market to buy cloth, cotton, and other things before returning to Hatai Alley. The cotton was meant to be used to make clothes for the girls. She had agreed to give them clothes for the 4 seasons. Now that the weather was very cold in this season, she naturally had to hurry up and prepare clothes for them. She also saw that their family conditions should not be very good. Although they were dressed cleanly and tried their best to face her in the best posture, their clothes were very thin. When they stood at the entrance of the shop, they were still trembling. Among the 5 of them, Yundong only knew Mei Hong's situation. According to Nanny Xia, Mei Hong was indeed from the palace. When the late emperor was in power a few years ago, the number of palace maids in the palace increased greatly, to the point of overflowing. Later on, when the new emperor took the throne, he issued a series of measures, including the regulation of letting palace maids out of the palace. Mei Hong was 25 years old and was also among the palace maids released from the palace. She had previously served a noble who liked to drink tea, so Mei Hong had learned a little from him. No matter what, she had a skill. Nanny Xia thought that with her ability, she wouldn't end up like this. However, she had previously heard from her that there were young siblings in the family. Presumably this was the reason. However, life was indeed not easy. Yundong thought highly of Mei Hong. She might become a store manager or something in the future. The capital was so big, and there were so many wives of aristocratic families. She could totally open a second one. Yundong felt that her idea was feasible. Now that she had recruited someone today, her mood improved. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to enter with many bags, She suddenly saw Mrs. Yu coming over with a vexed expression. Gu Yundong asked curiously, "What happened to sister-in-law Yu?" When Mrs. Yu saw her, she immediately ran over and asked, "Sister Yundong, do you know that there's a shop on Jinlan Street that recruits female workers?" Gu Yundong: "I think so. Why?" Mrs. Yu was even more vexed. I didn't go out yesterday and missed this matter. I originally wanted to ask if they wanted me. I'm a diligent person, but I just went over and they've already finished recruiting. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14:10. Nanny Xia expresses her suspicion. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. She let Tong Shui Tao carry the things into the courtyard. She turned around and looked Mrs. Yu up and down. Mrs. Yu felt uncomfortable under her gaze and asked, What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Sister-in-law Yu wants to work in that shop too? Isn't that so? Mrs. Yu said. You know my family's situation. The children are all grown up. I just want to find something to do to help cover the family's expenses, so that the children can live a better life. Most importantly, with her salary, wouldn't her status in the family rise? Gu Yundong stroked her chin. Actually, she had a good impression of Mrs. Yu. Although sister-in-law Yu was quite eloquent, she said what she should say and did not leak a word that she should not say. For example, her family had a lot of troubles. She and her youngest sister-in-law did not like each other, but outside, she had never said anything bad about the sister-in-law and did not let others know that their family was at odds. If Gu Yundong did not live next door, she would not know so much. Mrs. Yu was more or less the kind of person who would settle her family matters at home. When facing outsiders, the family should be united against outsiders. Gu Yundong felt that she was actually a very perceptive person with an outgoing personality. She was really diligent. Anyway, every time Gu Yundong saw her, Mrs. Yu would be working. Even if she came to talk to Gu Yundong, she would be sewing with a basket. Now that sister-in-law Yu had taken the initiative to say that she wanted to find work in a shop, Gu Yundong was quite happy. Hence, she smiled and said to Mrs. Yu, "Sister-in-law, if you really want to go to that shop to be a female shop assistant, come to my house at 7 in the morning tomorrow." Sister-in-law Yu was stunned for a moment, but she quickly reacted. She looked at Gu Yundong excitedly. "Sister Yundong, do you have connections? You can let me enter that shop to be a shop assistant? Don't worry. Introduce me. I promise not to embarrass you. I'm very diligent." "I know. Sister-in-law, remember to come tomorrow." With that, Gu Yundong waved her hand and entered the house. Sister-in-law Yu nodded repeatedly and was so excited that she wanted to cry out. However, when she thought of her troublesome sister-in-law at home, she immediately pulled a long face and walked in dejectedly. When Gu Yundong returned home, Shao Qingyuan was not back yet. He should still be looking for a shop. With a few more servants in the house, Gu Yundong did not have to worry about food. She wrote down the next plan and some food she wanted to prepare in the room. Not long after, Shao Qingyuan returned. The moment he entered, he gave her 2 contracts. "I've bought the shops. They're on Nanku Street. The 2 shops are diagonally opposite each other and not far away." Gu Yundong poured him a cup of tea before sitting down to read. "They're quite big." "Yes. I'll bring you to take a look another day." "Okay." Gu Yundong also told him about the manpower. The Qin residents will send 2 people over tomorrow. When the time comes, they will be handed over to Nanny Xia. She's good at training, so I can relax a little. Shao Qingyuan rubbed her head and said softly, "I went to the Song residence today. Bai Zhiyan can already get out of bed." Gu Yundong was stunned. Her eyes lit up. "All right. Let's go and eat first." Auntie Tian had already served the food. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan rested early after eating. The next day, Nanny Xia arrived just as Gu Yundong woke up. Looking at the woman who kept yawning, the corners of Nanny Xia's mouth could not help but twitch. She expressed deep doubt about her decision. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14:11. Gu Yundong has a way of managing her husband. Gu Yundong gave Nanny Xia a dry laugh and called out, "Nanny, have you eaten?" Do you want to eat something? No need. Nanny Xia sneered. She turned around and saw Shao Qingyuan. She nodded slightly. Shao Qingyuan draped a cloak over Gu Yundong before sitting opposite her and starting to eat. Nanny Xia narrowed her eyes slightly. This woman was quite good at controlling her husband. Gu Yundong ate slowly, and Nanny Xia was getting impatient. She wanted to remind him, but Shao Qingyuan, who was opposite her, spoke first. Eat slowly. It's still early. Nanny Xia was speechless. She'd better go outside and get some fresh air. Nanny Xia felt that it was too late. Gu Yundong should have let those girls come earlier. That way, she would not have to sit here alone and endure it. However, what Nanny Xia did not know was that Mei Hong and the other girls were already standing at the entrance of the Shao residence. They had all come in advance, but when they thought of the time that Gu Yundong had mentioned, they could not knock on the door and disturb her, so they simply waited at the door. Mrs. Yu had also left early. Unexpectedly, just as she was about to knock on the Shao family's door, she saw 5 people standing there silently. She did not know what they were trying to do. Mrs. Yu was shocked and quickly went forward. She asked in confusion, "Who are you looking for? The Shao family?" Mei Hong said, "Yes, we're looking for Boss Gu." Boss Gu? Mrs. Yu quickly recalled that Sister Yundong had said that her family was going to open a shop, but shouldn't she be called Lady Boss? Unable to figure it out, Mrs. Yu shook her head and asked, "Then why don't you go in?" "We." Before Mei Hong could finish speaking, the door in front of her was suddenly opened. Uncle Tian only opened the door to take a look when he heard the sound outside. He did not know the others, but he knew Mrs. Yu. Uncle Tian looked at Mrs. Yu. "You guys are..." Mrs. Yu hurriedly said, "I'm here to look for Sister Yundong. She told me yesterday that she wanted me to come in the morning. Look, I'm 15 minutes early." Uncle Tian nodded and looked at the others. Zhang Yingyue said, "Me too." Uncle Tian looked at the number of people and understood in his heart. They should be the female workers that Madam had mentioned, right? He quickly moved half of his body aside. "Come in first. Madam has instructed you to enter directly when you arrive." Mei Hong and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Mrs. Yu was the first to enter. Gu Yundong had already finished her meal. When she heard the commotion, she followed Nanny Xia over. Mei Hong and the others quickly went forward respectfully. "Boss Gu, you're here." Gu Yundong looked at the 5 of them. Yes, they were in good spirits. She stepped back, revealing Nanny Xia behind her. She introduced, "This is Nanny Xia. She used to serve the nobles in the palace. Now, she's the shopkeeper of our shop. From today onwards, she will teach you some basic etiquette." Other than Mei Hong, everyone else widened their eyes. "A nanny from the palace?" Gu Yundong said, "Nanny Xia is very capable. Previously, many big families wanted to invite her to the residence to be a nanny. Now that she's here to teach you, you're lucky. You have to study hard in the next month. It's good for you." "Yes, boss." The few of them were faintly excited. Only Mrs. Yu, who was at the side, had a dumbfounded expression. Gu Yundong smiled and turned to her. "Sister-in-law, don't you want to be a female shop assistant at the new shop on Jinlan Street? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 14:12. Another female worker. Mrs. Yu nodded blankly. Yes, yes. Gu Yundong pointed at Mei Hong and the rest. "They are the 5 new female workers that the shop recruited yesterday. You can learn from them in the future." Mrs. Yu blinked again, and suddenly reacted. She immediately looked straight at Gu Yundong. "Yundong, Sister Yundong, do you mean that the shop was opened by you?" "Yes, I opened it." Gu Yundong smiled. "Sister-in-law Yu, do you still want to go?" Mrs. Yu was a little stunned, but when she heard this, she immediately nodded reflexively. "I want to go, I really want to go." Gu Yundong nodded. "In that case, Mrs. Yu, come in with me. I'll tell you about the situation in the shop and let's sign a contract." After saying that, she turned around and entered the central room. Mrs. Yu followed her in a daze. Gu Yundong told her the basic situation of the shop, which was similar to what Mei Hong and the others had said. Then, she took out the contract as well. Mrs. Yu could not read much, so Gu Yundong read the contents of the contract. Mrs. Yu understood, but it was precisely because she understood that she was surprised. Sister Yundong, you'll be at a disadvantage with this contract. Is there a reason for you to compensate if you want to fire the workers? Gu Yundong could not help but laugh. I know what I'm doing. If sister-in-law you thinks that there's no problem, you can put your thumbprint here. However, should sister-in-law you go back and discuss with her family? No need. I've already spoken to my husband. I'll press the thumbprint now. After hearing Gu Yundong's words yesterday, Mrs. Yu felt that with her introduction, she would definitely enter that shop to work. Hence, she had already spoken to her husband. She did not expect that this shop would directly belong to Sister Yundong. Sister-in-law Yu was very excited now. There were 5 taels of silver for her salary. It was so much. Moreover, if she worked hard, it would increase. When she had money in her hands, she would not have to squeeze in this courtyard with her entire family. She could even send her son to school. Mrs. Yes' original name was Yu Rong, and she was about the same age as Tang Lihua. She had an outgoing personality and was easy to get along with. As soon as she signed the contract, she immediately changed her way of addressing him. Boss, I'll go out first and go home to inform my man. Then, I'll come over and learn from shopkeeper Xia. Okay. Mrs. Yu left in a hurry. Gu Yundong packed up the contract and walked out of the central room. Outside, Nanny Xia had already given them a lecture. Not only Mei Hong and the others, but also the 3 servants that Gu Yundong's family had bought. The 8 of them did not dare to slack off in the slightest in the face of Nanny Xia's aura. Their expressions were as serious as primary school students listening to class. Gu Yundong stood under the corridor and listened for a moment before turning around to go to the warehouse. Shao Qingyuan was sorting out the herbs. When he saw her come in, he handed her a box in his hand. You'll keep this for me. Gu Yundong glanced at him and smiled. Sure. She knew that the medicinal ingredients in the box should be good stuff. Now, the 2 of them had a tacit understanding that the most valuable things were with Gu Yundong. I'm going to the Song residence later. Bai Zhiyan's condition is rare, so we'll take this opportunity to take a look too. Okay. When the herbs were almost sorted out, Shao Qingyuan tidied up and walked into the courtyard. Nanny Xia happened to lead Mei Hong and the others to the kitchen. Zhang Yingyue was at the back. When she looked up, she saw Shao Qingyuan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14:13. Women Need Money. Zhang Yingyue was slightly stunned and took another look. It was only when someone called out to her in front that she hurriedly followed. However, her mind was still replaying the scene just now. That person was in an intimate position with Boss Gu and was very close to him. The way he looked at Boss Gu was abnormally gentle. He should be Shao Qingyuan, right? Was this person the one the royal prince had asked her to seduce? Thinking of Shao Qingyuan's face, Zhang Yingyue suddenly felt that he was not that repulsive. At least, he was not the kind of person who was rude and achieved nothing in his 50s. Instead, he was exceptionally elegant and handsome, and he had an aura that ordinary people did not have. Zhang Yingyue took a deep breath and smiled. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, Nanny Xia's slightly stern voice sounded in his ear. Zhang Yingyue, come and take this tray. Zhang Yingyue suddenly came back to her senses. When she met Nanny Xia's penetrating gaze, her body suddenly trembled. She quickly went forward and carried the tray. Nanny Xia raised her eyelids and led everyone to a room not far away. This room was specially vacated by Gu Yundong for their lessons. At this moment, Mei Hong and the others followed Nanny Xia into the room with trays, cups, rags, water, and brooms. On the other side, Gu Yundong sent Shao Qingyuan out. Unexpectedly, just as she turned around and was about to return to the courtyard, a carriage drove over. Gu Yundong looked up and saw Madame Gu coming down. She was accompanied by an old woman and a maidservant. When she saw Gu Yundong, Madame Gu immediately brought them over with a smile. I'm late. Has Nanny Xia started? It's not too late. Nanny Xia is about to start, Gu Yundong said with a smile as she welcomed Madame Gu in. Mrs. Gu said, Can you show me? Gu Yundong led them to the prepared room. As soon as they reached the door, they heard Nanny Xia's low and serious voice. If you want to be bold, the most important thing is to be confident. You're people with jobs now. You can earn money yourself. You earn more than the workers in ordinary shops. With money in your hands, you have the right to make decisions at home and outside. Thinking about it this way, don't you think you can hold your head high? Gu Yundong and Madame Gu looked at each other and could not help but laugh. That's right. Nowadays, many women had very low statuses because they did not have money or power. As long as they could control money or power, they would immediately be confident enough to speak. 5 taels of silver. Even in the capital, many ordinary people might not be able to earn this money in a month. Gu Yundong glanced at the old women and maids behind Madame Gu. Are they the people you found to help at New Tea Pavilion? Yes, old Madame Gao can help in the kitchen. Her culinary skills are not bad to begin with. Ah Chu will be entertaining guests in the front hall. Both of them are trustworthy people. As they spoke, the two of them bowed slightly to Gu Yundong. Greetings, Master Gu. Gu Yundong smiled and nodded. He reached out and knocked on the door. Nanny Xia's voice immediately stopped. Gu Yundong let them in. Shopkeeper Xia, I'll leave them to you. Nanny Xia glared at her. After letting someone in, she closed the door and locked Gu Yundong and Madame Gu outside. Gu Yundong shrugged and led Madame Gu to the reception pavilion for tea. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14:14. Early internship. Madame Gu smiled and asked, Nanny Xia is not bad, right? Yes, I think I can be a hands-off boss now. Don't. The shop still depends on you for promotion. Gu Yundong understood what she meant and her eyes lit up. Are you going to invite those noble ladies and young ladies to the Qin residence as guests? Madame Gu nodded. Yes, the post has already been sent out. Freeway. BNOVELCOM when? In half a month. Madame Gu said, I thought that after half a month, the people here will be almost done training. It's a good opportunity for them to practice at the banquet. Isn't this a rare opportunity? Besides. She paused, and a sweet smile flashed across her face. Moreover, Wenzheng will be back in half a month. I'm afraid more guests will come when he comes back. You can also call Shao Qingyuan away. You might even be able to see Marquis Huayin. Gu Yundong had already met Marquis Huayin's wife, but she had yet to meet Marquis Huayin. If Marquis Huayin came, his wife and second madam might come too. In that case, there was no need to wait for their shop to open before meeting them. Gu Yundong immediately began to look forward to it. All right, in half a month, I'll bring Mei Hong and the others to test it. Madame Gu then told Gu Yundong about the shops. She also managed a few shops. However, there were trustworthy shopkeepers in the shops and they had been in charge for a few years, so she usually checked the accounts and did not interfere. Now that she was working with Gu Yundong, she became interested and instantly became energetic. After sending Madame Gu off, Gu Yundong went to inform Nanny Xia of the situation so that Nanny Xia could adjust the time. In the following days, Gu Yundong began to get busy. She had to personally teach the few people in charge of the kitchen how to make milk tea and other snacks. Madame Gao, who was sent by Madame Gu, was indeed very useful. She learned very quickly. She seemed to be very interested in the production of milk tea. After seeing it once, she could draw inferences. Gu Yundong did not need to worry. Then, it was time to reserve the ingredients. Madame Gu went to buy the milk. There were also some flower tea. When Shao Qingyuan was collecting herbs, he even bought them for her. Furthermore, the quality was very high. Gu Yundong would visit the shop from time to time. Although Carpenter Pang was meticulous, most of the shop had been renovated over the past few days. Carpenter Pang was very happy because Gu Yundong had said that after the shop in New Tea Pavilion was installed, there were 2 other shops that she wanted to ask for his help in renovating. Initially, he thought that there would be no business in the winter. He did not expect a few big orders to come the moment he arrived. These 3 shops were completely worth Carpenter Pang's salary for more than a year. He felt that he could repair the house properly after the new year and make 2 sets of warm clothes for his 2 disciples. Half a month later, it was finally time for the Qin family's banquet. The day before the banquet, Yundong went to the classroom early in the morning and said to the 11 people who were no longer the same as half a month ago, "Everyone has been following Nanny Xia for so many days. I think you should know enough. The shop hasn't opened yet, but there will be a banquet in the Qin residence tomorrow. At that time, the banquet will mainly be filled with milk tea and snacks sold by our shop to entertain the madams and young ladies attending the banquet. This is an opportunity to show the results of your half a month of training. I will bring you to the Qin residence tomorrow. I hope that everyone will perform well. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 14-15. She was instigated by someone. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone present was stunned. This had never been mentioned before. Why did she suddenly say that they were going to the Qin residence to entertain guests? All of them immediately became nervous. Mei Hong was fine. She was originally serving nobles in the palace. She had even seen the emperor and empress, so she was naturally not afraid. Old Madame Gao and Ah Chu had originally been serving the Qin residence. They knew the Qin residence better than anyone present, so they were not worried. As for Madame Zhou and the other two servants in Yundong's residence, although they were nervous, their main venue was in the kitchen, so they felt more at ease. The remaining people's palms were sweating. Nanny Xia's mouth twitched when she saw this. She shouted, "Have you forgotten what I told you on the first day? What's there to be afraid of? You're just serving tea and water. Didn't you all perform very well in front of me previously? It's the same tomorrow." Furthermore, Nanny Xia glanced at Yundong. With Boss Gu around, there's nothing for you to worry about. Even if you offend a noble, she will take care of you. Yundong was speechless. Nanny Xia, even if you're giving them courage, they don't have to dig a hole for me to jump into. I'm just a weak, helpless, and pitiful woman. I don't dare to offend so many people. However, Nanny Xia was encouraging everyone, so she obediently shut her mouth. However, from the corner of his eye, she still saw a strange expression on someone's face. Zhang Yingyue. Zhang Yingyue was different from sister-in-law Yu. She had interacted with the royal prince, Yilan, so she more or less knew about that class of people. She knew that with Yundong's status, it was impossible for her to protect them. Therefore, she was not encouraged by Nanny Xia at all. Instead, she was even more worried and afraid because she knew Yundong's identity. No, that wasn't right. She still had the royal prince. Yundong raised her eyebrows. After half a month of observation, she more or less knew Zhang Yingyue's motive. Over the past few days, Zhang Yingyue had been wanting to go to the front courtyard. She wanted to see Shao Qingyuan. However, Shao Qingyuan was not at home most of the time. Even if he was, he would not come to the classroom here. Yundong had originally wanted to chase Zhang Yingyue out after seeing her motive. This girl could have other motives, but she could not covet her man. However, just as she was about to take action, Nanny Xia told her that Zhang Yingyue should have been instigated by someone. Instigated by someone. For some reason, Yundong thought of the Cui family. She did not have many enemies, and Cui Lan was one of them. Her love for Shao Qingyuan had turned into hatred. It was possible that she would find another person to seduce Shao Qingyuan. However, it was strange that Zhang Yingyue had not contacted anyone for the past half a month. Cui Lan, who had been engaged since a few days ago, seemed to have forgotten about them. Yundong was confused, especially after Zhang Yingyue failed to meet Shao Qingyuan twice. She began to learn from Nanny Xia seriously. This person was crazy. Yundong exhaled and turned to leave. Freu. No. Vel. Calm. The remaining people immediately surrounded Nanny Xia and began to ask about what they needed to pay attention to tomorrow. Before they left at night, Yundong asked Tong Shui Tao to bring a large basket over. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Unexpectedly, Yundong bent down and took out a cotton shirt from the basket. She looked at everyone. When I signed the contract, I said that everyone would have 2 sets of clothes every season when they work in the shop. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14-16. Cotton clothes. Everyone was elated when they heard this. They looked at the cotton shirt in Gu Yundong's hand in anticipation and disbelief. Initially, they thought that they would only have clothes when they officially started work. They did not expect to have them now. Gu Yundong had given them the measurements on the first day of their arrival. The cotton clothes were made by a woman and her daughter from a nearby family, who specialized in mending clothes for others. They had completed them in the past 10 days. However, there was only one set for the time being. It was enough to wear now. Gu Yundong asked them to continue making the second set. When the shop opened, they could take it and change it. She looked at the label on the shirt and began to call out, "Mei Hong." Mei Hong hurried forward. Gu Yundong handed her the clothes. "Try it inside." "Yes." Mei Hong took the clothes into the house and came out in a short while. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw this. Not to mention anything else, the style was very novel. They were also wearing cotton clothes. Although the clothes were thin, their upper bodies were bloated. Most of the styles were similar, and the most important thing was to keep warm. They also had to wear too thin clothes under the cotton clothes, making them look really ugly. However, Mei Hong's cotton clothes were light green now. She looked even more elegant. Coupled with her slightly raised high collar and tight waist, her back was straight. She looked young and beautiful. The cotton clothes that Gu Yundong had given them were made according to their sizes. Nowadays, many people would deliberately make larger clothes. However, the female staff of New Tea Pavilion gave people the impression that they had to be energetic, nimble, and clean. Clothes that fit them were very important. Gu Yundong was very satisfied with what Mei Hong was wearing. She picked up the next item. "You Rong." Mrs. Yu quickly went forward and touched the clothes lovingly. Not only did the clothes look good, but the material was also good. It was very thick to the touch. She did not need to wear it to know that it would definitely be very warm. Mrs. Yu had a child at home, so she would usually think of putting on new clothes for the child. However, in the past half a month, Nanny Xia had also mentioned that these clothes represented the shop's reputation. If they were dirty, it would affect the shop's reputation. If the shop's reputation fell because of this and was criticized, she would be fined. In serious cases, she might even lose her job. Therefore, the people here instantly gave up on the idea of letting others wear their clothes. The clothes were distributed one by one. Gu Yundong looked at them and found that they all fit in very well. When she was recruiting, Gu Yundong had also taken a look at their appearance and height. Now that they were standing in a row, it was very pleasing to the eye. Gu Yundong nodded in satisfaction. "Very good. You can all go back first today. Rest early tonight. We will gather here at dawn tomorrow. I will bring you to the Qin residence then." "Yes, boss." Everyone quickly agreed. Then, they entered the house and changed out of their cotton clothes. They cherished the clothes and folded them before putting them away. They left the Shao family one after another. Only Ding Rujun walked last. After some thought, she placed the clothes in the basket. When she met Gu Yundong's puzzled gaze, Ding Rujun said in embarrassment, "My house is a little messy. I'm afraid that my clothes will get dirty when I bring them back, so I want to leave them here first and wear them tomorrow, okay, boss?" Gu Yundong nodded and smiled. Of course. She also had some understanding of Ding Rujun's situation. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 14-17. Ding Rujun's situation. The Ding family's conditions were average, but her father had married a stepmother. Her stepmother did not treat her very well, but because Ding Rujun had embroidery skills, the money she earned from embroidery every month allowed the family to eat 2 more meals of meat. On account of the fact that she earned money, her stepmother did not abuse her. However, Ding Rujun did not have any time to rest. She had to work hard at home the entire day. She was quite smart. She did not embroider quickly to avoid raising her stepmother's appetite. Occasionally, she would even leave a few pieces of handkerchief and ask someone to help her sell them for money in the cloth shop. However, her stepmother did not like her and despised her for not earning enough. She wanted to bring her to the embroidery workshop. It was said that the embroidery workshop provided food and accommodation, and the money she earned every month was quite a lot. Ding Rujun did not want to enter the embroidery workshop. It was fine to do embroidery now, but if she did it for too long, her eyes would not work. Back then, Her biological mother had damaged her eyes like this and her body had fallen ill. She did not want to repeat the same mistake. Therefore, when her stepmother brought her to the embroidery workshop, she deliberately hid her talents. The embroidery workshop did not fancy her. However, her stepmother was still unwilling to give up. When she heard that Jinlan Street was recruiting, she immediately urged Father Ding to send Ding Rujun over. Father Ding really brought her to Jinlan Street. Ding Rujun was unwilling at first and only planned to go through the motions. She thought that if her embroidery skills could not pass, others would not want her. However, when she entered, she realized that the shop was not hiring an embroidery maid, but a female shop assistant. Moreover, according to Boss Gu, the guests were all women. Ding Rujun immediately understood that she had to seize this opportunity, so she performed very well and entered the shop. Her stepmother was not happy, but when she heard that she had signed a contract and would earn 5 taels of silver every month, she reluctantly agreed. After Gu Yundong found out about this, he spoke to Ding Rujun alone. She said, "Now that your family knows that your salary is 5 taels, I think you have to hand them over. However, I've said before that if you do well in the future, I'll give you a raise in salary. When the time comes, you don't have to tell your family. I won't tell you either. Just take it." Ding Rujun was stunned for a moment when she heard that. Then, she became slightly excited. Her eyes lit up as she looked at Gu Yundong gratefully. Therefore this time, Ding Rujun also proposed to keep the clothes in the Shao family for safekeeping. She was worried that her stepmother would take it away after she took it back. Gu Yundong agreed and Ding Rujun left. The next day, as expected, everyone arrived early in the morning. Gu Yundong rented 2 carriages to send everyone over. Nanny Xia led them in through the back door of the Qin family. She went to see Qin Wenzheng with Shao Qingyuan. Qin Wenzheng had just returned the day before yesterday. When he found out that Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were coming over, he waited in the study with a straight face early in the morning. However, after waiting for a long time, no one came. Qin Wenzheng was a little tired from waiting. He couldn't help but open the study door and go out to take a look. Then, he heard a familiar voice laughing under the corridor. "Is that so? In that case you know a lot of words. Speaking of which, your Mr. Qin used to be a teacher. Not to mention anything else, he's very experienced in teaching. If you learn more from him, you might even be able to become an elementary scholar." "Sister Gu, you must be joking. I'm not talented in studying and I'm already so old. I'm already very satisfied that I can read. How would I dare to take the elementary scholar examination?" "You don't have to belittle yourself. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 14:18. Qin Wenzheng's official aura, ahem. Qin Wenzheng coughed heavily and finally interrupted the few people who were chatting about the past. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked up. Qin Shu, who was standing opposite them, immediately stood up and glanced at Qin Wenzheng guiltily. He really didn't do it on purpose. He had been by Mr. Qin's side for several months, and he had learned a lot. He also knew that he shouldn't have stood under the corridor and chatted with people when guests came. However, he was too excited to see Gu Yundong. In addition, Sister Gu greeted him and asked about his recent situation. He could not help but keep talking and forget where he was. Qin Wenzheng snorted softly, and Qin Shu lowered his head even more. Only then did Qin Wenzheng look at Gu Yundong. "Come in. It's cold outside, but you guys are chatting so happily outside. We just exchanged a few words." Gu Yundong laughed. She was also very happy to see Qin Shu. Speaking of which, she could be considered the middleman between Qin Shu and Qin Wenzheng. She treated Qin Shu as her younger brother. When she saw him, she naturally wanted to ask, afraid that he was not good in any way. However, she forgot for a moment that Qin Wenzheng was no longer the teacher Qin from Fengkai County. He was an official of the imperial court, and the people around him had to follow the rules. Shao Qingyuan brought her into the study. Qin Wenzheng got someone to serve tea and sat back in his seat. He looked at the two of them and raised his eyebrows. "Are you used to the life in the capital? Did you encounter any trouble? If you do, you can look for me. I haven't seen you for a few months. Master Qin is becoming more and more authoritative." Gu Yundong smiled and drank a cup of tea. Wenzheng looked at Shao Qingyuan. Control your wife. She's already married, but she's still so immature. How am I immature? You sound so jealous. Gu Yundong was speechless. How was she jealous? Wenzheng, don't imagine too much. Yundong is in charge of my family, Shao Qingyuan replied as he sat beside Gu Yundong. Wenzheng choked. After a while, he waved his hand. Forget it. How can you be so self-righteous when your status is not up to standard? Pretend I didn't say anything. Seeing that Gu Yundong was about to say something, he quickly changed the topic. By the way, I heard my wife talk about you guys when I came back. Did you make any progress? Speaking of this, Gu Yundong's attention was indeed diverted. She frowned slightly and sighed. No. I had high expectations of the Marquis Huayin, but the last time I saw the Marquise, it didn't seem likely. Today, the Marquise will bring second Madame over. I wonder if she has gained anything. Wenzheng lowered his eyes and said, I heard that Shao Qingyuan's parents are a match made in heaven. They're both very good-looking, right? Gu Yundong nodded. Marquis Huayin and his brother are indeed handsome. I've never seen second Madame, but I think it might not be her. Shao Qingyuan frowned. What do you mean? I think you've all asked around. The Marquis Huayin did not lose his child more than 20 years ago. Of course, it's also possible that they hid this matter and outsiders have no way of knowing. However, as far as I know, Second Master Shao does have a son who's the same age as you. However, when you disappeared, Second Madame happened to bring the child to her parents' house and was not in the capital. Therefore, the couple Liang Zi saw holding Shao Qingyuan was unlikely to be Second Madame. Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong looked at each other. Wenzheng sighed secretly. How could it be so easy to find out something that had happened for more than 20 years? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible.